right. The time being 5 p.m., I will now call to order the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board regular meeting. Secretary Ringgold, would you please take the roll?
Commissioner Benny,
Present.
Commissioner Carbajal Moran,
Here.
Commissioner Engelhardt,
Here.
Commissioner Forney,
Here.
Commissioner Frederick,
Present.
Commissioner Garcia,
Here.
Commissioner Rucker,
Here.
Vice President Deshpande,
Here.
President Olson.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Fantastic. Would someone please move the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? With that, the agenda is approved. And on to approving these minutes.
I will move the minutes for the regular meeting minutes of May 20th, 2026.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes of May 20, 2026, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? With that, the minutes are approved. Okay, with that, we are on to reports of officers, and we'll start with Chief Jason Ohado.
Good evening, President Olson and Commissioners. I'm happy to be here tonight to report out on 2025 awards received by Park Police officers. These awards were recently presented on April 29th. The Minneapolis Police Department hosted its regional event, or its recognition event for officers who received awards. A number of Park Police officers were recognized, and I'd like to provide a summary of each of those awards. So at the top left of your screen, you see Officer Peyton Lauber. Officer Lauber is the 2025 Park Police Officer of the Year. Lauber has received at least 17 letters of recognition during 2025, mostly for outstanding arrests he made throughout the year. Many of these arrests occurred while Officer Lauber was serving in a voluntary, additional, and secondary assignment on the park response team. He also volunteered to train several new park police officers as a field training officer. Officer Lauber is widely lauded by his supervisors for his extraordinary ability to effectively communicate and persuade compliance. He is a trusted and go-to trainer for new park police officers. He consistently demonstrates superior teamwork, immense dedication to the mission of the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board, and projects an infectious positive attitude. So Officer Lauber actually received his physical award at the award ceremony last month or 2 months ago. Also receiving an award was Officer Gabriel Rolstead. Officer Rolstead is at the top right of your screen. She serves as a part-time range instructor. She trains all of our new officers in firearms proficiency, and she, as part of her assignment, attended the renowned Bill Rogers Shooting School located in Ellijay, Georgia. While attending the training, Officer Rolstead became the first female in a 50-year history to shoot a perfect score. Officer Joshua Herr. Officer Herr is here with us tonight. Come on up here, Josh. So just over a year ago, on June 1st, 2025, Officer Herr responded to Boom Island on a mass casualty shooting. When he arrived, he encountered a chaotic scene with at least 5 people suffering from gunshot wounds. 1 victim ultimately died. Officer Herr immediately went to the aid of a critically injured victim and provided emergency life-saving measures, which included applying chest seals to gunshot wounds and providing chest compressions. Officer Herr received the life-saving award. Officer Dan McShane received the Medal of Valor. The Medal of Valor is the second highest award within the police department. On August 12, 2025, Officer McShane responded to Mueller Park on a report of a man assaulting children. Officer McShane located the suspect in an adjacent alley and attempted to stop and detain the suspect. During the arrest, a struggle ensued, and the suspect and Officer McShane fell to the ground. The suspect continued to resist and try to get away, he bit Officer McShane's arm. As the fight continued, the suspect attempted to grab McShane's gun and caused the gun to fire while still in the holster, a bullet narrowly missing his leg. Once help arrived, the suspect was successfully controlled and ultimately arrested. Officer McShane is in the top center picture, and he's the officer on the left side. Responding to that same incident, Sergeant Keith Rowland and Officer Morris Dennis also received awards for excellence in tactics and de-escalation. Sergeant Rowland and Officer Dennis responded to the officer needs help call involving Officer McShane. As Officer Dennis and Sergeant Rowland arrived, they immediately took coordinated action to successfully control a highly agitated and violent suspect who attempted to disarm a fellow officer. Their tactics helped ensure the suspect was not seriously injured and ultimately resolved as a peaceful arrest. On August 27th, several Park Police officers responded to the mass shooting at Annunciation Church, and 3 officers received formal awards. Officer Farmer, please come on up. I just mentioned that Officer Morris Dennis had received an award on the prior incident. He also received a Medal of Valor for this incident, and Officer Dennis is in the top center picture in the middle between me and McShane. Upon arriving at Annunciation, Officer Dennis immediately entered the church and assisted with the search for suspects. During the search, Officer Dennis also assisted with medical evacuation of a critically injured child. He then took guard of the gymnasium, which had been filled with displaced staff and children. Officer Dennis maintained his position, protecting children and staff until the situation was under control. Officer James Cannon. Officer James Cannon is in the middle picture standing next to me. Cannon provided cover for canine officers searching Annunciation Church and adjacent areas. During the search, Officer Cannon discovered several faculty members hiding in a closet who he assisted to safety. Officer Cannon also provided scene and perimeter security throughout the incident. At the top of this slide are all of the officers who received medals of commendation, and one of those officers is Officer Farmer, who's with me right now. Among the first to arrive at the scene, Officer Farmer immediately entered the church and began assisting injured victims. Officer Farmer provided care and comfort to a child victim who had suffered a gunshot wound to the head. Officer Farmer assisted with the victim's medical evacuation and stayed with the victim until they arrived at the hospital. For that, Officer Farmer received the Medal of Commendation. I also mentioned on this slide at the bottom left is Officer Carl Zabinski. Carl Zabinski, for 2 years in a row, has been recognized by Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Last year, he received their Bronze Pin Award as one of the top DUI enforcers in the state of Minnesota. He made 27 DUI arrests, most of which were on parkways, which qualified him to receive this award. Thank you for allowing me to make this report. I'm very proud of the work of these Park Police officers, and I'm happy to be able to share their good work with all of you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Chief Ohado. Certainly courageous work being done there. All right, we are now on to reports of officers with Superintendent Bangora.
Thank you, President Olson and Commissioners. Let's get started. We'll start with Strategic Direction A. Act boldly for our climate future. The U of M research trees. MPRB Forestry and the U of M are working on a research project to plant and monitor the potential survivability of various tree species from slightly warmer climates. The goal of the project is to gain better knowledge of tree species that can survive here given a warming climate and our localized urban heat island effect. Essentially, this is the trial to see which varieties show promise from the changing climate of the Twin Cities. This month, the project had 2 plantings with Sparked Y Youth and local high schools, 1 planting at Stewart Park and 1 at Bohemian Flats Park. 8 trees were planted at Stewart Park and 12 trees were planted at Bohemian Flats. Some of the species planted were, well, I'm gonna get this wrong, okay, Chinkapin oak, black tupelo, pecan, shellbark, hickory, yellowwood, Siberian spruce, and even persimmon. There will be more plantings this fall, so stay tuned for an update. Pretty cool. Strategic Direction B, cultivate each community's place and honor cultural traditions in Minneapolis parks. Juneteenth. Juneteenth is one of 2 freedom celebrations held throughout the United States. The other is the 4th of July. It originated in 1865 and is the oldest known celebration commemorating the ending of slavery in the United States. On June 19th, 1865, Major General Gordon Granger and his troops arrived at Galveston, Texas, where they announced and enforced President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, which had officially taken effect 2.5 years earlier. Minneapolis Parks has been host to Minneapolis' original Juneteenth celebration for decades and is put on by the Park Board in partnership with the Community Planning Committee. Kicks off with the indoor air-conditioned movie, Disney's Pixar Soul at Bethune Community School Auditorium on Friday, June 12th. That's Saturday, June 13th, 2026, noon to 6 o'clock p.m. Location, this is going to be at Bethune Park, 1304 North 10th Avenue, Minneapolis, Minnesota 55411. The community festival will feature music performances by local artists, activities and giveaways for youth, bingo with prizes for adults, food trucks, information vendor booths, and free haircuts by local barbers. Join us as we celebrate Freedom Day at Bethune Park. More details online under activities and events. It's a wonderful event, and if hope to see you all there. It's really pretty amazing. Truly a community event. Strategic Direction C, implement quality youth intergenerational programs, Soapbox Derby. Minneapolis and St. Paul once again partnered for the annual Youth Soapbox Derby, now in its 3rd year, for Minneapolis and part of an ongoing cross-city collaboration for ages 10 to 14. I call it competition, they call it collaboration, so I'll leave it at that. So St. Paul, man. This year's race, I had to go there. This year's race was held last night, June 2nd, at Hidden Falls Park in St. Paul. Last year's Minneapolis hosted the Deming Heights as part of the city's alternating host site tradition. Participation remains strong with 10 Minneapolis teams and 12 St. Paul teams, up to 6 drivers per team, and up to 132 individual runs throughout the event. City of St. Paul, Mayor Herr, and several Park Board commissioners stopped by, adding great energy to the event. Each team builds its own derby car for over 4 to 6 weeks with support from park staff and volunteers. Both cities purchase car kits and staff prepare plywood templates to provide appropriate tools for youth to cut, assemble, and construct their cars. A major creative component of the program involves car decorations where staff supply paint, brushes, and materials based on colors chosen by the youth, allowing participants to fully personalize their derby cars and express individual and team identity. The program builds hands-on skills in tools, teamwork, problem solving, creativity, and safe racing techniques with staff coaching youth throughout the process. Race day is run in heats of 4 teams at a time. Each participant gets 1 time run, and team standings are determined by the average of their 3 fastest races. Very technical. The city with the fastest overall time earned a traveling trophy of the year, providing friendly competition and bragging rights between the Twin Cities. First, second, and third place teams in both Minneapolis and St. Paul received trophies, and a Best Decorated Car award is given based on staff and volunteer voting. Frogtown earned the Best Decorated Car. Jimmy Lee was awarded 3rd place overall. Northwest Como took 2nd place overall, and Botno Park, photographed attached, won this year's race and will host the Twin Cities Trophy for the next year. Yeah. It's so fun to watch this race. I was here at the ribbon, I had to miss it, but man, it's awesome. Every race received a $70 toolkit from the Tools for Teens organization. Returning racers receive a secondary item such as a headlamp. Food on-site activities were provided for youth and volunteers, helping keep teams engaged before and after the race lot. Congratulations on this amazing event. It's going to continue to build. We used to have the milk cart boat races. I don't know if you remember that on the lakes, but this is really a fun activity, and they love it. And it's great to have St. Paul and Minneapolis, the two best park systems in the country, united on a great event. So, Strategic Direction D, care for park assets to meet evolving needs and practices. Nokomis Gym. The trades team recently completed a major NPP 20 renovation project at the Nokomis Gymnasium. The carpentry team removed the old ceiling and installed a new 4x8 tectum ceiling throughout the entire gymnasium. It was a significant undertaking, and the finished product looked outstanding. While work was underway, the electrical team installed new LED lighting and updated controls, making the system much easier for staff to operate. The paint team refreshed the entire gymnasium with a new coat of paint, and the HVAC team installed new ceiling diffusers that greatly improved the overall appearance of the space. The MEOs also played an important role by coordinating the delivery and removal of trash dumpsters throughout the project. The trades teams would like to thank Recreation and Maintenance for adjusting their schedule to accommodate the work. A special thank you also goes to Ryan Suseg for his daily efforts to help keep the space clean and safe for everyone involved. Ryan Suseg is amazing. If you go to that park, you'll see his care and love for that space and how beautiful it looks and the care of it. So great work by Ryan, our park keeper. This project required a tremendous amount of coordination and communication across multiple teams, and that collaboration was greatly appreciated. And I love the photo of them standing like in this coordination with the lifts. It's pretty cool. Very, very cool. Great job, our team. Strategic Direction E, steward the natural resources. Cedar Lake East Beach tree planting. MPRB Forestry collaborated with Kenwood Elementary School to plant 9 cottonwood trees at Cedar Lake East Beach. These trees were planted as a project for the Kenwood School Forest located on that peninsula, and to put some trees back on the beach. Formerly known as Hidden Beach, this site had a lot of trees that had since died and been removed, leaving the space open and exposed. With more tree planted in strategic locations, they won't impede sunny beach enjoyment. This area may be able to get some of the most sheltered feel that had characterized the beach. With that, President Olson and Commissioners, that is our report. If you have any questions, we are here to take it, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for that. Commissioners, do we have any questions? All right. Okay. Seeing none, we will now be moving on to reports of appointees to outside boards, commissions, or committees. Commissioners, anything to report? All right. Seeing none, we are now moving on to the consent agenda. Is there anything that folks would like to pull for further discussion? If not, would someone please move it as a slate?
I will move the consent agenda as a slate.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That the consent agenda is approved.
On behalf of the Administration and Finance Committee, I'd like to move Resolution 2026-93, a resolution approving a joint powers agreement between the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board and the City of Minneapolis for the Lake Harriet Parkway and William Berry Parkway intersection improvements project within the Chain of Lakes Regional Park.
Second.
Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, I believe this is a straight-up vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? With that, resolution prevails.
I'd like to move Resolution 2026-96, resolution approving Memorandum of Understanding Amendment Number 1 between the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board and the Minneapolis Sailing Center related to fundraising and preliminary design for the Bade-Makaska Board Launch and Sailing Center within the Chain of Lakes Regional Park.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, sorry, Secretary Ringgold.
President Olson, I've got something for the next item.
Okay, great. All right, resolution 2020, any opposed? None, okay. Resolution 2026-96 is approved. Okay, Secretary Ringgold, on to the next.
President Olson, the nominators for this particular item haven't arrived yet, so I'm wondering if we could move on to other parts of the agenda and then come back to this.
Absolutely, well, we'll come back at the end of the meeting here to resolution 2026-89. We are now 10 minutes before open time. We will move on to Parks for All implementation and the 2025 MPRB annual report update. Welcome, Madeline. And Ben.
Hello.
Good evening, President Olson, Commissioners. My name is Ben Johnson. I am the Social Media and Media Relations Manager for the Park Board. I'm going to go through the 2025 annual report, which you should all have a copy of. And then my colleague, Madeline Hudek, is going to go through the Parks for All dashboard, which is connected to the annual report. I've helped create the annual report every year since I was hired in 2015, so this was my 11th total annual report. It will also be the last one for the foreseeable future. I'm leaving the Park Board on June 12th. You can see the cover of the annual report here. We usually try to pick out some events and accomplishments to highlight on the cover. This year we picked the completed renovations at the Lake Harriet Bandshell, the new splash pad representing all of the MPP 20 accomplishments, that's at Victory Park, and then the River Hub at Grayco Park, one of the largest facilities we had opened in years. A little bit of history. You can see the annual report's been published since the very first year of the Park Board in 1883. It's a historic document that really helps track what happened in the park system over the past year, notable accomplishments and events, facts and figures about the park system, and it's really fascinating to go back and even just look at the old cover photos. A lot of them are right outside of the boardroom, framed on the wall. So it's cool to see how the Park Board and just the art has evolved over the years. On a contemporary and current level, it's a public, transparent update that summarizes what we've been doing on an annual basis. We send copies of this report to over 30 different partners, Hennepin County Libraries, commissioners, city council members, foundations, and other organizational partners. So it's a way that we really share with our partners and also with the public. This is posted online at minneapolisparks.org/annual report, where you can see annual reports going back to 2010. Also, annual reports are scanned and available at the Hennepin County Library digital collections, so you can go back and read going back to the 1800s. In 2021, as you all know, we approved a new comprehensive plan for the Park Board called Parks for All, and in 2022, we redesigned our annual report around Parks for All, and specifically the 9 core goals of the plan. So just quickly going through, we have a welcome and an intro with a table of contents, commissioners, officers, contact info, mission statement, and then the second page goes through the superintendent's greeting and some fast facts that have evolved over the years about the park system. Then towards the back, we have a page on our budget and our workforce. And then the back page is distinctions, kind of highlighting major awards and distinctions that we earned over the years. The meat of the annual report is designed around the core goals. So you see here we have goal 1, foster belonging and equity. Each goal gets a 2-page spread. On one page we highlight 2 major initiatives, and then on the second page we do 4 other initiatives, and then a sidebar full capsules, and facts and figures. So you can see what that looks like on the second page there too. Now what's cool, what we did, Madeline and I worked together, she oversees a dashboard connected to goals of the comprehensive plan that's also available online, and we connected that to our annual report. So you can scan that QR code, and it'll take you to a dashboard with more data related to that goal. So you can see here, we planted 8,300 trees last year. You scan the code, you can see what is the legacy of the urban forest, and you can look going back to 2012, trees planted and trees removed. So that's kind of some cool crossover digitally. And more about those Parks for All dashboards, I can introduce my colleague Madeline Hudek.
All right. So, as Ben mentioned, there are some dashboards that go with the comprehensive plan to talk about or track the implementation over time. There are 3 dashboards overall, and this is showing kind of the triangle of how those work. So at the highest level, we've got the goals dashboard, which is where that crossover happens with the annual report. And that's got, it's really kind of the big picture thinking and tracking for the plan. And then at the sort of mid-tier level is the strategies dashboard. And then the finest level of detail is the implementation plan dashboard. So for the goals dashboard, that's really trying to answer how is the MPRB working to impact the Park Board, Minneapolis, and the Twin Cities. So there is 1 page for each goal, so 9 total, and then within each of those, there's at least one kind of indicator question or big picture question, and 1 or more charts that are tied to that. So the examples I have here are there's a big picture question for goal 6 about how have we realized the ecological system within the park board. And for this particular one, we have 2 different items. So one around acres of managed natural areas by their management brief status, and then one around the progress on resiliency projects within MPRB park plans. And as it happens, both of those also tie to a performance goal. The 2 separate performance goals, which I know is something that you all are working on right now. So right now, these are for the 2023 to 2026 performance goals. And then as you all develop your performance goals, eventually those will be things that we can track in this dashboard too. We also have one for revenue here. So sometimes we just have 1 big picture question and 1 chart. So all of the data for these different dashboards are things that are tracked by various departments and folks around the organization. So there's a massive asking of information from a bunch of different people. So this dashboard wouldn't be possible without collaborative cooperation. And then if we get to the strategies dashboard, that's really talking about how the park board is connecting the work that we do to the strategies in the comprehensive plan. So that has 2 pages. One which is what's on the screen here about priority strategies and outlining the different goals, and as you kind of plus through, you get more details. So you can see at a high level with the goal number 1, for example, there's been 282 times in which that priority strategies under that goal have been used for things like community engagement plans, there's an accomplishments form that folks can fill out on a quarterly basis. Eventually, we'll add in the policies that the park board has that are both public and internal. When they have goals and strategies tagged to those will be something that isn't in here now, but we want to add in the future. So there are certain things that we are showing here. So it's not everything, but it at least gives you a strong sense of things. Board actions are a really large piece of this. So every time you have a board action, there's at least 1 or more goals or strategies, and those are all tracked here. So right now we've got, out of the many priority strategies, there's 975 instances of use so far. And this dashboard's been available for about 3 years or so. So that's a fair bit of things. When you get to the last page of this dashboard, you can see any of the strategies across the 120 plus or so strategies across the comprehensive plan. And that I think is in the thousands at this point because we've had a lot of board actions. So the last dashboard.
Madeline, we were at 5:30. You almost made it.
Well, to be continued.
Yep, we look forward to the thrilling conclusion of the dashboards. All right, so open time rules. Thanks to those of you who have come to speak during tonight's open time. The board's open time rules are as follows. I will call on people from the speaker list only. Names are added to the speaker list by calling in before 3 p.m. on the day of the meeting or by adding it in person at the board meeting before 5:30 p.m. The time allotted for all speakers shall not exceed 15 minutes. We have 9 speakers tonight, so we will have a minute and a half per speech. Time may not be transferred to someone else. Please watch the timer and stay within your allotted time. This is an opportunity for you to address the board. We are listening, but will not respond. That said, please don't hesitate to contact any of the commissioners for dialogue and further discussion. To protect the privacy of individuals, please refrain from commenting on specific personnel issues or pending litigation. Discriminatory or harassing words directed at anyone will not be tolerated, and each speaker is asked to state their name and address. So first up, we have we have Benicio Mendiola Johnson, and then we have Alan Michael Owen. Welcome, Benicio.
My name is Benicio Mendiola Johnson, and my address is 611 East Franklin Avenue. President Olson, Vice President Deshpande, Commissioners, my name is Benicio, and I'm with Parks and Power, an organization working for a more equitable park system here in Minneapolis and greater community voices in decisions about our parks. I appreciate Commissioner Garcia's bringing Resolution 2026-114 forward regarding the Minnehaha Dog Park. Over the last few weeks, you've seen a lot of discussion and debate about this issue online. But after hearing last week's presentation from Dakota leaders, the National Park Service, the Minnesota Historical Society, and archaeologists, I don't think the question is whether this place is significant. The question is whether we're willing to act on what we've learned and what we know. We've heard that Minneoashni is part of a sacred landscape with thousands of years of Native history. We've heard that it remains an important cultural and spiritual place today. We've heard that this broader landscape includes burial grounds and areas of deep cultural significance that deserve protection and respect. And we've heard clearly that for many Dakota people, this was never an appropriate use of this land. I understand that many people love this dog park. Change is difficult, and losing access to a place you've grown attached to is never easy. Every year we delay is another year that harm continues. And every day that we delay is another day that harm continues, and every year that we delay is another year that harm continues. At some point, we have to stop talking about the problem and begin addressing it. This resolution will not undo the past, but it is an opportunity to stop an ongoing harm, begin repairing a historical wrong, and treat the sacred site with the respect it deserves. I urge all commissioners on the Planning Committee to support and pass the resolution. Thank you.
Thanks, Benicio. We have Alan Michael Owen and then Jeremy Fink.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you for seeing me. Alan Michael Owen, 3040 Pleasant Avenue South. What I come to talk today is about, this is not a lesson in historical competency. What I'm asking today is, how does this affect all of Minnesotans and Minneapolis? What occurred here was a historical injustice. That's a fact. Now what we do about it is a little bit more in our control. First, I want to assure everybody that Dakota people do not hate dogs, nor do we want to see their dog park go away. But for the same reason that most religious services exclude animals during times of high consecration, we seek that same dignity. Most Minnesotans and Minneapolis have an inadequate amount of cultural and historical competency to understand how our contemporary issues are tied to the past. Native American relocations, people still struggling to adapt to this urban climate while not having any spaces, virtually zero spaces, to practice our religious freedoms that are afforded to us. So we ask for this small parcel of land to be reserved and to be respected.
Thank you, Alan. Jeremy Fink and then Josh Kobasta.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Fink. I live at 4324 Lindell Avenue South. Under its current stewardship, the Minneapolis Mississippi River Dog Park and its surrounding trails are kept remarkably pristine, standing in stark contrast to many of our city's other beaches and picnic areas. Furthermore, the consistent, active presence of responsible pet owners serves as a natural, highly effective safety deterrent. This is a well-documented civic benefit. Indeed, it was the primary catalyst for the Minneapolis Airport Commission's long-term support for the airport dog park. Safety and cleanliness are inherent byproducts of an engaged community. Public parkland is meant to be shared, not segregated. Crucially, the presence of dogs here does not preclude anyone else from enjoying the broader landscape. Rather than limiting the park's utility, the dog park enlivens it, ensuring the space is utilized and protected throughout the year. Any environmental concerns regarding the site must be evaluated in the sense of scale. This area is defined by hydrology, experiencing massive biannual floods that routinely create 20 feet of water above the average baseline. These rushing waters completely submerge significant portions of the valley below Cold Spring for weeks at a time. In the grand scheme of this powerful natural ecosystem, the footprint of seasonal human and canine recreation is entirely negligible. Moreover, the historic and land use context of this site is not unexamined. It has been meticulously reviewed by the National Park Service and Minneapolis Parks, resulting in successive rounds of fencing, boundary adjustments, and compromises. Most recently in 2024, the current deliberately condensed boundaries already represent a carefully
Jeremy.
struck balance between competing interests. Am I out of time? Or?
You are. If you
Okay.
could one more
I
sentence.
strongly encourage the park board to put aside their activist ideas and considering the broad public.
Thank you, Jeremy. Josh Kubasta, and then, sorry, I can't make it out. Errol or Bandy, perhaps, last name.
Hello, Josh Kabasta. I live at 1719 St. Anthony Parkway. And I just want to explain a little bit about how I use the dog parks, all of them. So I'm a year-round user, year-round even in -20, because I need to be with the dog I have. We love it. Some of the other things I do at that park, I do help stomp invasives and try to do my part while I'm in the parks. I've put out fires at the Minnehaha Park because unfortunately there are illegal campfires sometimes set up, and I'm an early riser to the park, and I pick up garbage. So my ask is that there is an engagement with the community that uses these facilities throughout the park system, right? About 2 years ago, there was another vote on this park, and I requested some data, so this is a little old, but in 2023, there were 3,400 permits for dog parks, for off-leash dog parks, and that was about $130,000 in annual revenue. My point there is there's a community that uses these. We would love to be part of finding a solution, finding where we can have dog parks. Please engage us in that process. Many of us came to a meeting 2 years ago. I was unable to meet that one, so I'm here. So my request is the motion as written seems to preclude a dog park of any kind anywhere in the Minnehaha long-range plan. I would ask that we make room for discussing how this amenity can exist at Minnehaha somewhere, maybe not this exact spot. Thank you.
Okay, we have Earl Bandy, last name. Okay. And then we have Gary Spears, and then Mike Forshaw.
Hello, I'm Gary Spears, Minneapolis resident. Just coming to speak today. We're hitting our 1600 day renaming, removing Sibley Park and renaming the process. We're just asked more of barriers to be taken down with communication-wise with the Indigenous Parks Council at that time. We've been on it for 52 months and 1600 days, which is really significant, and we were there before that happened. We had Leonard Peltier and the Crow Creek chairman sign on to that petition. We believe that's very important to us in this process, to keep it open and keep direct barriers where we don't have to go through middle people or multiple middle people before we can speak to them directly or have permission to speak to them directly. But also I came here today is that our Religious Freedom Act of August 11th, 1978 is very important. It's passed by Congress, and this is the United States of America, and so we have a Religious Freedom Act as a Native people here. And the dog park is infringing on that And so, you know, we've seen it many times at Minneapolis, especially at 2026, where I spent a significant amount of time, and many people spent a significant amount of time there too, at the area. But we've seen that they had interfered with the sacred site, thereby using it as a toilet for the dogs, not respecting the Religious Freedom Act. We need to reconsider this whole park as an idea to be scrapped altogether, to respect Native people. Thank you.
Gary. Mike Forsha, and then Kim Kelly.
Hello again, Mike Forsha, American Indigenous Movement. Here to ask for land back. I hear you talking about your history of the park, when it started. We didn't get citizenship until 1924. I think yesterday was the anniversary for that. And then I hear about the celebration of Juneteenth, the end of slavery. Woohoo! But this country was built on genocide, land theft, resource theft, and slavery. But there was an end to that. And during that time, our land was still being taken, our resources were still being taken. And now we have homeless natives 20 feet from East Phillips Park. And you're worried about golf courses. You're spending millions of dollars with golf courses so these rich men can put little tiny balls in little holes. And my people are still dying on the street, and I appreciate you showing up, coming down there, and I look forward to you coming down too. But we got something that ain't right on this board. This guy over here, bad vibes. I'm getting bad vibes from him. But we got to do something. We got to do something. A minute and a half isn't never long enough, not for something like this.
Thanks, Mike.
And you got a dog park. People doing it. What are we doing here? It's 2026.
Thanks,
Come
Mike.
on. Let's get busy.
Kim Kelly, and then Chris Moland or Mulholland.
Hello, I'm Kim Kelly. I live in Minneapolis and Victory Memorial Drive. This is very spontaneous for me tonight, so I don't have anything formal planned to say, and it's very hard for me to follow natives on this topic because I have so much respect for them. And I'm a religious person myself, and having these spiritual sacred places I think is really important to our community, and it's important to me. But I had to come tonight because I love this space so much. I've been going to the Minnehaha Dog Park for over 15 years, and it's a spiritual place for me. I mean, it breaks my heart to think that all of the hundreds and hundreds of people that visit there every day with their dogs, that's just getting shut down, and there's no other option for us. I mean, it's where I connect to God. There's nothing else like it in the city. I've brought people in from Chicago and other parts of the country, and that's where I take them. I take them to the dog park, and then I take them to Sea Salt after for a bite to eat. And they are just like, this is incredible. Nowhere else in the country has something this beautiful that you can take your dogs to and connect with nature. And I just have to think that part of the indigenous culture would want all of us living in this community together to be able to have that connection to nature, to find a way to be able to use it together as a community and to make the space something that we can all continue to love together, and that animals, nature, all of it is part of that. And so my biggest hope is that we can find some way to share the space still and honor the natives that originally used it. Thank you.
Kim. Chris Mulholland, and that's it.
Hi, Chris Moreland, Livernois Chestnut. I'm a fourth generation European American with a very vested interest in a lot of these sacred lands that are here. This is a much bigger issue than just these instances we're talking about today. I've been a part of a lot of the process of healing through reconciliation. And I've seen how that works, and that's through open, honest communication, telling the whole story. Everybody gets to share their story, their side. And I really believe there's a lot of people, you know, even in this room, that have solutions to a lot of the problems we have in the city, you know, and further. And if we can get a chance to do those things in some of these sacred places, the healing can happen, and it'll radiate from there to our city and through the world. And so I'm really proud to be from here, you know. A lot of the process, the renaming of places, the land back that is happening, you know, I go around the country and I tell people of what we do here that way, in that reconciliation, in that healing. And we need to really look at the base problem of what we are facing, you know, and how to proceed forward. You know, I was part of the motion that changed the you know, the compromise for the golf course. You know, beautiful example. You know, the roof depot, beautiful example. You know, it's these compromises, these coming together and understanding each other, and not taking away the dog park entirely, or whatever it is. There's plenty of places for dog parks, okay? There really is. Beautiful places, you know. I just wanted to say, you know, I'm in support of all these, you know, renaming some of these places, you know, and it's happening, and I love to see it. And, you know, it's really about the power structure and who's got control of these places, and the stewardship, if that's being done in the best way. You know, that power structure is still in place from the French fur trade coming in, bringing that, you know. And, you know, it's a new day and age, and we all need to heal, right? Okay, yeah. We all want this to get better. We all, you know, we don't want 500 people on, you know, the wall of forgotten natives sleeping in tents doing drugs. We know how to fix that, okay? Give us a chance.
Thank you, Mr. Moreland. All right. With that, I will close open time, and we'll return to our presentation on the MPRB annual report.
Okay, so final dashboard, finest level of detail is the implementation plan dashboard, which is really about the specific actions that the park board's taking. So the screenshot here is giving sort of one of the summary pages we have. So on the far left side, you can see the overall progress that's being made. Then it goes by action type. So in this implementation plan, there's all the performance goals in here, any of the action plans that we have, which includes the racial equity action plan, the ADA action plan, and then the resiliency action plan. And then any associated budget actions to either the performance goals, or sometimes there's other budget actions that are included in here that may not be directly tied to a performance goal, but all of that is included here. So it has 10 pages in total, so this is the most in-depth, both with content but also quantity of things to look at. And if you're excited about data and want to look at any of these things, on the Park Board public website, if you go to the About Us and go to the strategic directions, there's an implementation and tracking page, and you can find links to all three of the dashboards with more information there. And that is all.
Great, thank you. Okay, commissioners, any questions for Ben or Madeline? All right, well, thank you too. Okay, we are now on to further commissioner onboarding with Director Lauber with Director for Information Technology. So update on Park Board IT services.
Commissioners, thank you. This is a little bit late, and I appreciate your patience. This is really part of the onboarding presentations from all of the departments. Okay, so I obviously am Director Lowbright, head up the Information Technology Services, or ITS department here at the Park Board. I've been here about 3.5 years, and certainly been a great experience. So I wanted to start with a little background and history, but with my limited view, you know, some of this is kind of seen through my frame of reference and some information I've gotten certainly from folks who have been here longer. It's not a comprehensive history. It is just a little background and context to make sure that we kind of have a similar framework to look at kind of where things are today. So I'm going to start in 2010, although I believe that the technology operations here preceded that by at least a decade, if not more. So in looking back 15, 16 years, Parkboard IT really consisted of desktop break-fix operations, end-user support, and basic network file server and services. It was generally like a decentralized operation in some ways from my point of view, in terms of that departments and divisions were empowered to make many of their own technology decisions regarding IT software and services. And this kind of led to, it's not unusual, it leads to organic growth in these types of situations. And that can present some unique challenges over time, certainly from a management perspective, a budget perspective. Kind of getting that whole centralized view is always a challenge. So we move forward, say 4-year increments here. 4-year business cycles are kind of how I like to approach technology management. So that's how I broke this down. 2014 to 2018, I would characterize that as kind of the enterprise technology era, not necessarily here at the Park Board. I mean, you could make an argument that it's certainly longer than 4 years, but here I see this was a time when the different locations were developing interconnectivity. Some centralization was beginning to occur. They implemented, Park Board implemented an IP phone system. This required all of our networked locations to kind of form into a star kind of configuration, and we had more centralized file serving, more centralized server infrastructure, a co-location facility, and then a number of technology efforts at the organizational level, including things like ViewWorks, which was a ticketing system for both IT and asset management, the organization as a whole, to create work orders and to create IT tickets, and Global Forms, another document management system, if you will, with the ability to submit forms online. Really is centralizing the Exchange server and the email platform, and then building out the infrastructure to support more robust building security systems across the agency and across the city. Next 4-year cycle, we get COVID comes onto the scene 2018 to 2022. We get COVID disruption. Park system shuts down. During this time, in my observation, significant technology drift occurs. And there was a lot of tacit knowledge across, not just in IT, but a lot of tacit knowledge during that period, during the Great Resignation, left not only the Park Board, but a number of other organizations were affected by this. So, but what also happened was, prior to COVID, the Park Board was a technology operation that people, came into work to work on their computers. There was not a lot of laptops. There were not a lot of laptops. There was not a lot of remote work. But COVID really kind of forced this to happen, and it pulled the agency forward really quickly. And the agency had to react and try to procure equipment with the supply chain disruption, which is difficult and presented a lot of challenges. So, and then also it was required to create remote access opportunities so people could work from home. It was never set up that way in the first place. So all this happened in the craziness of COVID. And then we kind of get to 2021, 2022, and we start to recover from COVID. ITS begins to rebuild its staff. By 2022, we're getting back to close to pre-pandemic levels, and recovering and discovering and this institutional and tacit knowledge that had left. We still kind of suffer from this a little today. So now we get into kind of the 2022 to 2026 is the era where I have a better view and and some better vantage point on that. So we finally, I think, are right in the process of hiring the last staff that will get us back to the level that we were before COVID. We've also established some life cycle management around technology, and this is built into the ITS budget. In the past, in my view, there was kind of a if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and you kind of run systems, until they, in the business we call it falling off the back, until they fall off the back, and and then replace them. I mean, and now we're trying to build in life cycle management. So we have some longer life cycles, but we still we don't just like run the thing until it breaks and try to head that type of thing off at the pass by doing better management, really. ViewWorks was retired. I'll get to the replacement for that in a little bit. And then we had the 2024 cyber attack and the recovery from that, which some of you were here for. Some of you who weren't may also be aware of that. That really changed a lot of things. And the recovery from that is still really ongoing in some ways. And then we, in the wake of that, we've really ramped up our network and endpoint migrations. In late 2025 and early 2026, we moved from Verizon to T-Mobile. All cell phones were replaced, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slides. And so we have some ongoing efforts to modernize and better secure these MPRV systems. So what's the current state? So our core services, we have 15 people, 15 positions. So we have the Information Technology Resource Center, the ITRC. That's the help desk for all MPRV employees and for you commissioners as well. The MPRV Network Services, this is our IO area. This is LAN and WAN, local area network, wide area network across all MPRV locations. Telephony, including copper line service. We have a cloud-based phone service now. And then on-prem and cloud-based server infrastructure. It's a hybrid environment. So we have many things that are out in the cloud now, but there's still some core services that are hosted in our data center and delivered locally. Application support services. We partner with MPRV departments in the evaluation and acquisition of software as a service applications and MPRV hosted solutions through the RFP process. And then this area also deals with software licensing management, which is no small task. And then we have the building security system. Project management and system support, systems administration for the surveillance system, the access system, and then this is a centralized infrastructure that exists in many locations, not all locations. And we do have a little bit of a bifurcated, there's a legacy system that's still in play in this area. So what's the department look like? This is the organization. So we got the director, and then we have the manager of infrastructure and operations. There's 2.5 people. The database and GIS analyst is split between IT and planning. Then we have the ITRC, where we have 6 technicians. And then we have a project manager, an open position, which we're interviewing for right now for the information security and compliance administrator. And then the application support professional sits in that area as well. So I wanted to, this is a little bit of I wasn't sure if I should do it exactly this way, but what I wanted to convey here is a little bit of the complexity around what is commonly referred to as the MPRV network. So we have a number of different locations. We have 101 networked locations across the city. That includes 51 rec centers, 4 operations centers, if you include Southside, a couple of ice arenas, 6 or 7 golf courses, depending on how you count, and a number of smaller, public restrooms, like at Bossum Field, tool sheds, pavilions, Minnehaha Pavilion. We have our co-location facility where some of the core server infrastructure is located. And then we have the SaaS services, the software as a services that exist in the cloud. And this includes things like Elio, which is Rec Plus software, some HR services, our phone system, Golf's Club Profit, ActiveNet, things like that. They're out in the cloud. So that's kind of the big picture of the layout. What does it consist of by the numbers? So we got a lot here. I sum it up on the next slide. So, so actually, I guess the number of net point of presence, 126 actually. So it was 101. We keep expanding. That number is the best current number I have there. So you can see the lay of land. We have 20 computers that are in the police squad cars that we've just taken on the support of that in 2025 from the city of Minneapolis. So it was a significant amount of work to get that going, and it will also be some significant work going forward to keep that maintained. So by my count, approximately 2,514 devices deployed. So the 126 number is probably the better number to use. So that was, I got that from Andy, our manager of I/O. 15 staff. And what I wanted to kind of demonstrate here with these ratios is there's lots of different metrics. I like this one. It's simple, and you know, if you think about it, it says a lot. So we have one IT staff person to 165 devices. Now, a high security, we're not the Pentagon, right? We're not the NSA. A high security operation might have a 1 to 50 or a 1 to 75 device ratio. So in the last 10 years, 10 years ago, it was a high security environment was 1 to 100. So it's shifted, right? It takes more people to be more secure today than it did 10 years ago. It's a hard problem. Some other interesting numbers. There's 2,380 tickets closed in 2025. 1,314 tickets closed so far in 2026. These are just help desk tickets, break fix, you know, software installs, things like that. We're tracking a little ahead of last year, but it's trends up slowly. So it is increasing, but not at a rapid rate, which is manageable. So some recent highlights. At the end of Q1, we completed a rollout of multi-factor authentication. After the incident, we had it in places, but we really needed to do it at the agency level. It took the city of Minneapolis 7 years to implement multi-factor authentication. We had to touch every single cell phone to really do this in the park board. That's, you know, approximately 650 or whatever the number was there. We had to touch every single one. We did that as part of a migration from Verizon to T-Mobile to align with the state contract and what the city is doing in terms of cell service. We did it in about a year and a quarter, so it was a heavy lift. And then also the support of Park Police's MTCs, as I mentioned earlier. That was also completed in the first quarter of 2026. Last year, the replacement for Vuex Cartograph was rolled out in partnership with Asset Management. It's in production now. It's a great system, and actually the process to acquire it, the rigor that was around that was really impressive in my views. And it was a great partnership with IT and Asset Management, and the migration after the incident, our file serving had been mostly in-house. We migrated almost 14 terabytes of data into Microsoft's SharePoint Online environment, into document libraries. There's still cleanup work going on that. That 14 terabytes, it can be a lot of different things, right? We have some heavy video files and things like that in here. So our actual document count is a little bit lower than you might expect at that level of storage. We have 3.5 million documents in that Azure Microsoft SharePoint Online environment today. So that is actually not human processable at that point. Like, we cannot create an administrative burden on staff to kind of manage that level of information. And the challenge is that, you know, you think, oh, well, AI is going to help with this or something. It probably will someday. I mean, it helps a little bit now. I mean, there's this, like, we're in a very different world than we were 10 or 15 years ago with that. But it still requires a fair amount of organizational discipline and effort to actually ever really effectively manage, and it's growing. So, you know, we grew, some of it is because we keep putting things in there, but some of it is just organic growth. So of that 3.5 million files, an interesting, how many files are accessed on a daily basis? About 600. So I think you kind of get the picture there. So what's the road ahead? Well, so maybe it's obvious, maybe it's not, but an increased focus on information security and compliance. So we have a few compliance frameworks that we are audited on and that we must comply with. CJIS is the Criminal Justice Information System. That is a standard. It's based on this NIST 800 thing. It comes from the FBI. We get audited on that, I believe, every 3 years by the BCA. PCI DSS, that is payment card industry standards. So to process credit card transactions, we have to be PCI DSS compliant. That involves a couple of different things, including some work around the organization in terms of like inspecting credit card devices, how we process these transactions. You'll see more about this probably in the second and third quarter of this year, because there's a couple of things that we need to do to actually increase our compliance and the rigor around how we process these transactions. And then, like I said, this NIST 800 control framework, which comes from the National Institute of Standard and Technology. It is not a law, but it is used in many of these other compliance frameworks, and auditors tend to audit IT departments on controls in that framework. We're continuing to work on upgrading our network perimeter security systems. That work is underway. We expect that to roll out in the third quarter of this year, or actually late second quarter. But that's going to be a significant piece of work right there, because when we pull and upgrade those pieces of equipment, basically everything that comes in and out of the network touches those things. So there's a lot of risk. There's a lot of configurations on these things, and so that work is already underway, and we'll see more about that, you know, as the year progresses. And then a focus on access and identity management. I mentioned two-factor, multi-factor authentication. That's part of it, but annual processes and like I said, the life cycle management of access and identity in all of these various systems is a real challenge at the Park Board, and that is something that the Compliance and Security Administrator will be focusing on. So we upgraded the core network switches in our 3 core locations, which is the co-location here at headquarters and at Southside over the last year. We are probably 75% done with the entire system. We're standardizing on some new equipment. Some of this equipment that's out in some of the rec centers and in some of the tool sheds is quite old. And so that will, the network upgrade will probably be completed in early 2028, I think, is the target right now. And then also refocusing ITS on our core system operations, kind of some of the things I had on that earlier slide. IT really needs to, we run a lot of things, and the resources that we have are limited, and you know, my view is that we need to kind of focus on our core competencies and get better at that. So that is going to be a challenge, but it's certainly good work. So I'll stop there and see if anyone has any questions.
Thank you. Vice President Deshmande.
Thank you for the presentation. My question was around cybersecurity, since you mentioned the 2024 breach. St. Paul was also crippled by something similar
Correct.
recently. So beyond two-factor authentication, what else are we doing to protect our networks and educate our staff about the types of threats we face?
Yeah, so we implemented this year annual security matters training for all staff. That is also a requirement of a number of these compliance frameworks that we have that. So that's one thing. And I think we can talk about a couple of the other things maybe are not necessarily suitable for a public meeting since it is security information. But I mentioned some of the things on the core network upgrade and the perimeter security and things like that. So that might be something that we would, I could brief the board on in another session.
Thank you.
Commissioner Benny.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. You mentioned the sites, all the sites that have essentially that are networked in, and you mentioned like bathrooms. So this must be building controls and things like that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of variance depending on the location.
Yeah.
But so some of the restrooms, like Franklin Steel, it comes to mind because that just was an issue this last week. So there's a bathroom there. There's a surveillance camera, like on the outside, not in the restroom. Of course, it's on the outside of the building. Boston Field, there's electronic access on the doors there. There's schedules that lock and unlock the doors and put the alarms in place on a schedule. So that's kind of how that works. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'd call those building controls.
Building security systems.
And building, well, yeah. And does the park board work with a vendor on that, or is that done in-house? And is there a unified software for that? Because like I know Johnson Controls or something like that. When we get to the university, lots of building controls.
Yeah. So we have for the electronic access and the cameras and we have a centralized system. There's still a legacy system in place. So some of the burglar alarm systems, intrusion systems. Are still Honeywell, that is centrally managed, but there's two systems.
So it's centrally managed, and there's park board personnel that can operate.
Correct, but there is also
that interface with it.
Yes, but there is also a vendor involved with the new system, the newer system. It's been around for quite some time, but so there's a vendor partner with that, and we have a managed services agreement with them. There's certain things that park board staff cannot do that are, that have to be done by a certified technician with a vendor like Bosch, or with a vendor like, some of the hardware vendors and the software vendor.
Okay.
So some of that stuff we actually just don't have access to.
Yeah, and I'll put in a plug in, maybe it exists, but for standardizing as much as possible when new buildings come online.
So that actually is in place, and a lot of work has been done on that. Predating my tenure, there's a thing called the Building Security Steering Committee. There are standards for all new construction. Some of the challenges with that is that these systems are not cheap. No. And so if you're doing new construction, the standardized system is there is a standard, and we put it in the building, and sometimes, certain times we can't do everything that we wanted to do, so we can't meet the standard 100%, but it's fairly standardized.
Good, okay, thank you, very interesting, thanks.
Commissioner Engelhardt.
Similar question, that 565 surveillance cameras, and also thank you for the report, of course. On those surveillance, I guess my question is, standardization and what external vendors and who has access to these surveillance cameras?
So that's fairly tightly controlled, and it depends. So in the rec centers, rec staff have access to the cameras in their facility, and they can view them on a monitor. So there's a safety issue involved in this, and actually staff have been more cameras and surveillance around the rec centers for a number of different reasons. Obviously, park police use the cameras, and other than that, there's not like broad access. It's like tightly controlled with groups and mostly internal access.
Yeah, thank you for that. I guess a little bit more specifically, like we heard some different things as we move towards standardization, but no contracts with, these big names like Flock or other things like that. It's all, everything that's surveilled, we have control over?
We have control of the video, yeah.
Yep.
And so, for example, some of the video is actually subject to public data requests. So if you can see a camera in a park, the public requests this video.
Yep.
And we have to do it. Now, there are rules around it if it is not in a public area. That's not necessarily public information, like some of the cameras that you would find in the back of this building, for example.
Thank you.
Okay. Further discussion? All right. Thank you so much, Director.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Okay. We are now on to our next resolution.
I'll move Resolution 2026-112, resolution directing the superintendent to produce an inventory of all U.S. Department of Transportation Act of 1966 4F projects affecting Minneapolis parklands since 1996 that have come before the board for concurrence, and to advise the board of all future 4F concurrence requests at least 60 days prior to board consideration.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, on to discussion. Vice President Deshpande, to your resolution.
Yeah, thank you. This came out of Resolution 2026-95, which is the one we passed about Highway 280. And so as I researched this resolution related to 4F, I wanted to put some important history on the record. I'll start by saying that without Section 4F protections and without the Minneapolis Park Board, there would be an elevated highway running through Minnehaha Park today. Jewel of our city would have been destroyed. As highways started being built in the 1950s, the Park Board immediately recognized the threat that they presented. By the early 1960s, the federal government and the state of Minnesota had already taken a lot of parkland and built a lot of roads and highways through them, with plans for more. The Park Board then influenced the Civil Rights Era Department of Transportation Act of 1966, which included Section 4F, requiring transportation entities to look for alternatives to destroying parks, wildlife refuges, and historic areas. Then in 1969, MnDOT said it would build an elevated highway through Minnehaha Park. This board said no. We sued the state. We then took the case to the U.S. Supreme Court and weren't granted a hearing, but a similar case from Memphis was heard at that time that reaffirmed 4F rights, protecting us too. That case was written by Justice Thurgood Marshall. Urban planners then and now saw parks as empty spaces that were easy to build through. We, of course, take a different view. Parks contain history, they contain memory, they contain joy, and they contain the spirit of our city. We were one of the only examples where an elected body fought back against these types of incursions. Not a citizens group, not an environmental group, us as an elected body representing our constituents as we should. I've said it once and I'll say it again, mayors and city councils don't care about parks. The Minneapolis City Council and the mayor approved MnDOT's plans to build a highway through Minnehaha Park, and they left it to the Park Board to take the fight all the way to the Supreme Court on our own. These are not issues of the past, and cities still face transportation development pressures and other infrastructure pressures. 30 miles from here, the city of Mound is considering selling parkland on Lake Minnetonka to build a water treatment plant. In Dallas, the city sold lakefront property that got turned into luxury condos. Boston wants to give away a sports field used by school children and turn it into a private stadium for the team's soccer team. In New York City, residents of the Bronx opposed plans to build a casino in a park. But the previous mayor and even the current mayor both approved the project. So a public park in a poor part of New York City will have a private gambling enterprise on it. Around the country 60 years ago and yesterday, in cities red and blue, people seem to agree that giving away and selling parks is a good policy. But that's not why I'm here, and I don't think that's why any of us are here. My focus is on our mission to permanently preserve and protect parkland. The shape and form of these threats will change and evolve over time, but they won't go away, whether it's coming from the Met Council or the state of Minnesota or Hennepin County or the city. Our job is to speak for those parks and for our constituents. And 4F helps us to do that, but new laws are needed and new elected bodies to oversee parks are needed too. I hope this inventory that's coming out of this resolution will give us the historical record that we need to do our jobs and that future boards will also have. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Vice President Deshpande. Commissioner Engelhardt.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Vice President Deshpande. Very helpful background. Also, we would be perhaps in a highway if transportation officials got there. We're at where we sit right now. Would have gone through the heart of District 1 and drastically changed the landscape, and other parks would have been impacted as well, that we all respect very much. I want to also point out that staff have expressed that this would be helpful on the staff perspective and our dedicated staff, that getting this information more quickly and having this in front of them and us as the elected Board of Commissioners has staff support. So I think that's really important as we consider passing this. Thank you.
Commissioner Forney.
Thank you for the resolution, Vice President Deshpande. I've been a part of 4F disputes for, no, not going back that far, but anyway. Anyway, and I just, wanted to share with everybody that I'm going to get the colors wrong, so I'll just call it the Southwest LRT. That originally was going to have 2 stops in Theodore Worth. The deer need an awful lot of transit. So anyway, but prior to that, at Southwest, that was the blue line. Anyway, but with Southwest LRT, we were engaged after the major decisions were done. And there is where they realized that we need to be brought into to the table earlier. And Director Arvidsson and I were part of finding some very creative solutions, for going through Theodore Worth, and because they brought us to the table from the very beginning. So we have made great strides as far as having our voice heard, but yeah, we need to develop even greater relationships, and I think this would be a very proactive thing to do. The Blue Line extension for Broadway, we've been very active in being a voice at the table for that. But anything that we can do, because as you articulated, it's been abused throughout the history of all parks. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Commissioner Benny.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I just want to say thank you for bringing it forward, and as a result of the previous work, decoupling that. But also, thanks for your research on this and your what you prepared to read to us. I think it's really helpful and a good reminder. So it'll be helpful to knit together actually the data and the outcomes if we can get that from the staff. So thanks.
Okay. Councilor Rice.
Yeah, if I could just weigh in. I want to echo what the other commissioner said about your effort, Commissioner Deshpande. It's very, very important. The board has looked at these issues for a long time, and some have gotten very contentious, as Commissioner Forney said about the Southwest LRT. The board actually stood up in that case, and the governor at the time took away our funding, or threatened to, made a recommendation to take away the money. Ultimately, we got to a solution on that, but it wasn't easy. And I recall, I believe it's in your research, but I think it was about 60 years ago, the board passed a similar land policy in the midst of all the construction of the interstate. So I think this is so well written and well researched. When I first read it, I said, who did this? And it was you. But it's a master level work, and hopefully this resolution will last for another 60 years, and hopefully the staff and the organization will take every word of this seriously, and that the partners, the alleged partners who want park board land for their own purpose will recognize they're not going to get it unless they can get the 2/3 approval of this board, which is a very important power. And the 4F authority is really, I think you've uncovered some great history here, and thank you for refreshing it. And for this board and future boards, it's absolutely imperative. It's your biggest mission.
Further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? With that, the resolution prevails. I believe we can now go back to the naming resolution. Would someone please move resolution 2026-89 under admin and finance?
I'll move Resolution 2026-89, a resolution accepting the nomination and initiating the public hearing process to rename McCray Park to Wallace Jack O'Neill Jackman Park as proposed by Dr. Tanya Jackman, Hampton.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we are now on to discussion. Do we have any discussion on this? Oh, sorry, Commissioner Rucker.
Yeah, I'm in full support of this because Coach Jackman checks all the boxes for all what he has done for the community. As everybody knew, well, the last time we talked about this, I just gave my story on when I first met Coach Jackman. When I first met him, McCray Park was just a building for storage, 2 bathrooms, and a water fountain. That was it. And then with his unwavering support of that community and the kids, the building that stands now, he had a lot to do with that as well. Fundraising, talking to different council members, the mayor, things like that. But, like I said, he checks all the boxes. I just hope that this resolution moves forward as written, so we can vote on that, or unless the family wants something different. But with that being said, I'm in total support of this moving forward to go through the process. It's a 2-year process, so a lot of things are gonna come out during the 2-year process about him as well. So moving forward, I just hope we have the support of the other commissioners as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Rucker. Typically, I don't know if we'd have time for some words, but before we get into it, seeing as you're here, Dr. Tanya Jackman Hampton, if you had a couple words.
Dr. Tanya Jackman Hampton is my sister. I'm Dawn Jackman.
Oh, sorry.
So I'm here just in case you have any further questions to ask.
Okay.
If there's anything you need from me to move this forward, any information, that's what I'm here for.
All right, thank you for your availability.
Mhm.
Commissioners, if you have any questions, feel free. Okay, further discussion. Vice President Deshpande.
Thank you for coming, by the way. I'm really excited to support this with 2 amendments that have come forward. One is from staff that I would like to move, basically changing the title. And the motion would now read, resolution accepting the nomination and initiating the public hearing process to rename McCray Park to Wallace Jack O'Neill Jackman Park as proposed by Dr. Tanya Jackman Hampton, with the primary goal of engaging community on a change that would replace the current name with Jack Jackman or add Jack Jackman to the name of the park.
Okay, do we have a second for that?
I will second that.
Okay, on to discussion. I see Commissioner Rucker's light.
Yeah, on this amendment, I just have, a question for Secretary Ringo. So in this procedure, in the section of the policy, if renaming is proposed, the MPRB project manager will research the history of the original name, and its information will be evaluated as a part of this renaming process.
President Olson and Commissioner Rucker, yep, that is true. That might be more related to the next
Yep.
amendment that might come forward.
Right.
But as part of the overall naming process, we would be researching the history of the existing name.
Okay. And then my next question is, Dawn, I mean, would you want to add that or keep it the same as you presented it?
This has been an ongoing discussion, and I think my father was best known for Wallace Jack Jackman. The O'Neill part is his middle name, but he is more referenced to as Wallace Jack Jackman.
Okay, so you want the option then? Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying? Okay.
Commissioner Engelhardt.
Yeah, so the language with the primary goal of engaging community on a change that would replace the current name with Jack Jackman or add Jack Jackman to the name of the park. One, I guess, is that accurate is what the name should be. It's different than the original language. And two, I guess I'm not clear on what the purpose is, and it could be read, or I'm reading it as possibly that it would stay McRae and just add more. Is that the intention? So, it's questions. Thanks.
Secretary Ringel, I believe that would be, so in making it clear that an option would be to add Jack Jackman, so Jack Jackman McRae Park or something like that.
Yes, President Olson and Commissioner Engelhardt. So the original nomination included the option of it also still retaining the name McRae in it. So it was initially Wallace Jack O'Neill Jackman Park, or the potential of some combination of that name. And later I've had clarification of Jack Jackman attached to the name McRae. So it seems like there are some options coming forward, both in the nomination letter and even tonight I'm hearing some options. But what has seemed important is that we don't lose Jack Jackman in the options that I've seen in different communications.
That's correct. Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Benny?
Yes, I think that what I read this as is it's seeking a little more flexibility as we engage the community for the way that the park will be named, whether it's a full name change, partial name change, or whatever. I think it would be important, though, that if we may want to look at bringing back the name Wallace here, but maybe not O'Neill. I don't know if there was some concern about the length of the overall name. But I think we should, if this is adding a little more flexibility that can respond to the community, I think we should go for it.
Okay.
I agree. Thank you.
Further discussion? Yeah, it seems reasonable to me to make clear, and frankly, change the name. Jack Jackman rolls off the tongue a little better, but so I think I'm okay, totally okay with this one, and it sounds like it advances our overall goal of what this process would be. So I think I'll support it here. Commissioner Forney.
Yes, I'm just going to re-articulate that I don't have a problem with who we are acknowledging. I'm just having a problem with naming, renaming, and I think that there's an interest broader than this in memorializing. And I say that because I know our memorial and tribute staff person is working really hard. Right now, our benches, let's say at aisles, are completely filled, shall I say. It's not the right way of saying it, but anyway, we're at capacity, I guess is the word. Anyway, and I just really would love to find more ways that we can acknowledge people in a very, very respectful way. This is a big lift, and not that he didn't deserve it. It's more a matter that I would hope that we could find alternatives that are fitting for all of the wonderful advocacy that people have been doing for our park system.
Okay, further discussion to the amendment? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the staff amendment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? With that, it is approved. Now on to further discussion to the resolution as amended.
I would like to move one additional amendment to the resolution that reads, resolved that the Board of Commissioners instructs staff to present details of Alexander McCrae's tenure as a Minneapolis Park Board Commissioner in the public hearing process, and if able to be found, include members of the McCrae family in the process.
Second.
Second, okay. On to discussion of the amendment. Commissioner Rucker.
Now, I'll say this. This is a procedure section of the policy. If the renaming proposed, the MPRB project manager will research the history of the original name, and this information will be evaluated as a part of the renaming process. So we already have this in process already, that we don't have to have a amendment to this. I just feel we can vote on how it is instead of adding something that's already there for the process. So it's already in the policy, it's already in the procedure. So I don't see a reason to have this amended when something's up, it's already in the policy. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Okay, Vice President Deshpande.
Thank you. The reason I brought this forward was because in the policy, it wasn't completely clear to me that the information about, the historical name will be presented in the public hearing process. The other reason is that this person specifically probably does have living family, and I think just out of decency, it would be good to involve them and see what they're thinking. And from what I've been able to find about Commissioner McCrae was that he was well respected, and it's interesting. He served as board president during World War I, took a break. He came back in the middle of the Great Depression in 1934, and then he served through World War II, dying in 1944 in office. So I also see this just as an opportunity for us as an organization to understand and establish more of our own history and make that known to the public.
Commissioner Engelhardt.
Yeah, I mean, this is, there's a lot that goes into naming and renaming and honoring people. And I think there's value in learning about Commissioner McCrae, and really appreciate the what you just shared and all the research you do, Vice President Deshpande. Yet I want to name, Commissioner Rucker's points. I think we can hear about it without amending. I don't know that it would, this amendment would necessarily delay anything, but in terms of just moving this forward, I'm in support of moving it forward, given everything we've heard about how important Jackman was and is to our community, and particularly our Black community. So I think it feels already built in, and hopefully we get that information that you shared. But I just don't want to delay it in any way, and just signal that we're in support of this altogether. Thanks.
Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you, President Olson. I just wanted to note I'm going to oppose this amendment, given that I also feel that it is built into the process. It feels a little bit like an unfair moving of goalposts to me to say that when we are considering naming a park after a very worthy Black person, that we need to add extra steps, that we need to instruct staff to do additional things to bring to the public, as opposed to the process that we've already been using. So for those reasons, I will be voting against this amendment.
Commissioner Rucker for a second time.
Yeah, I just, want to echo what Commissioner Garcia was saying. It's just there shouldn't be another layer to it that we already have in place. When you add another layer, it just comes off wrong to me as a black person, that now, once again, when we're trying to get a black person name put on a park or whatever it may be, or I'm hearing other ways of, you know, honoring a black person, a room, a bench, or anything like that, why do we always have to settle? I'm tired of settling. You know, this should, you know, go forward as written, as, you know, honoring what the family's saying. The research that's gonna come out about Commissioner, well, President McCray, that's gonna come out during this process. This is a 2-year process. So with that being said, it's just, as a black person, I'm just tired of the different layers. And just like Commissioner Garcia was saying, moving the goalposts, you know?
Thank you.
So with that being said, I'm gonna oppose to this amendment.
Thank you, Commissioner Rucker. Commissioner Carvajal Moran.
Yeah, so I also will not be supporting this amendment. Yes, just processing it. I don't know. To me, how I read the amendment, I think I understand the intention of providing education on who McRae was, the legacy that they have given us. But to me, when I read it, I just don't want to put like two histories against each other, and so that's how at least I read this amendment. I think that the name-changing policy is how it is, I think, as Commissioner Rucker was saying, I think that it is gonna hit on that, and so at least I want to be transparent with my vote. I will not be supporting this resolution.
Vice President Deshpande for second, or was it okay? Commissioner Ebeni. Oh,
I think it was me.
Okay,
I believe it was me. Thank you. I echo a lot of what my fellow commissioners have said, so I won't speak too long to my decision. But I also concur that throughout this process, it is baked in. I think we very much value community opinion as a board, and that is a value that we will continue to strive forward throughout this process. So I see the resolution as written as a way to engage the public in this process, and I have the belief that the public will be able to hold the history of President McRae and the history of the legacy of Jack Jackman together, and create a solution and a decision that will move us forward. So with that, I will not be supporting the amendment, but I do always appreciate your robust commitment to researching Vice President Deshpande, and appreciate you bringing it forward.
Now I believe it's Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I just want to say that I'm hearing some consensus here. I would just also mention, I believe, this policy is brand new, actually, and I think this might be the first name change that's coming through since the policy was adopted. So I think I have a lot of respect for Vice President Deshpande's concern that there may be a gap in the policy or in the procedure where, and maybe the policy as written didn't contemplate something like this. We're at the 71-year mark, the 75-year mark, these automatically go in review. Anyway, so I think that maybe this is not going to pass. I'll have to feel reassured, though, that we definitely would like to hear. I'd love to have information about McRae, and I think that the intent here was very good, trying to make sure that there were no gaps in the process. So thank you for bringing it forward.
Vice President Deshpande.
Thank you. Yeah, my intent was simply to gather the history. I definitely would never want to pit different interests against one another. That's never my goal or intent. I did have a question for Secretary Ringgold. So will Mr. McCrae's family and be engaged or attempt to be found, and will information about him be presented given the policy as it's written today?
President Olson and Vice President Deshpande, yes, we intend to try to find the McCrae family, and if we've got information to bring forward, we most certainly would do that. I will say that I've thought a lot about this, and to Commissioner Abeni's comment about, is there a hole in the policy? And I think this is the first time I've experienced the potential of renaming a park where the park is named after a commissioner or named after someone who has been so directly related to the park system. In most cases, those renamings have been for names that were of maybe national folks of significance who may not have even have been in Minneapolis. And so this actually makes us probably think about it a little bit differently, and might require some type of a policy edit in the future. But at this point, with or without the amendment, we would need to do some due diligence with the McCrae family, and we would intend to do that.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I'll retract my motion.
Okay. Okay, now on to further discussion of the resolution as amended. Okay, well, I'll give my 2 cents. I'll be voting for it. I earlier expressed some, apprehension, because I think when we first came up with this policy, like, there was some stuff around naming, and I think there's a part of me that still has that, but, I've also kind of come to the conclusion that I think, having names after folks who are kind of relevant to, living communities, new names, kind of changing things and going through it, and also acknowledging kind of different, groups of folks and different contributions. I don't know, I think I'm valuing that more, and I'm also excited to put our new policy through its paces, see what's good, what's substantive, what's maybe missing, have the community come back to us, and we can kind of see, I think this is kind of a good test case, because I think there are some other kind of, this one is, there are some kind of, maybe perhaps some gray areas or points of potential conflict. So I'm really interested to see how the community discusses this, how they approach it, and what recommendations come back to the board. And so I appreciate this being brought forward in this way, and I'll be supporting it. Anything else? Seeing none? All those in favor of resolution 2026-89, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? With that, the resolution passes. We are now on to our study item, our discussion of our 2026 and 2027 to 2030 strategic directions, resolution 2026-65. I don't believe that needs to be moved or seconded. Secretary Ringgold to the strategic directions.
Okay, well, let's do this next one. Commissioners, President Olson, thank you very much. It's my job tonight to probably do 2 things. One, your work on this primarily has been in Committee of the Wholes and primarily has not been at a time where there's a broadcast associated with it. Certainly there are recordings, so people would be able to go to those and hear about it. But I thought it would be helpful on that first part to help kind of the viewing public and the folks in the room walk a little bit through it. So you're going to see some slides you've seen before, just to prepare you for that. And then I think the second part of it is to share with you where we're at with the strategic directions and the performance goals and the priority comp plan strategies, and try to gauge, are we there yet? Or is there still a little bit of work to be done on it? You have met throughout this process, our Data Insights group. Joe obviously was doing active voting, live voting in the middle of a meeting. You've seen Peter and Lyndon. You've seen Madeline. Certainly you've seen Adam. But I also want to say that there's probably about another 20 to 25 staff in the organization who have been doing some really great work and bringing their talents to this. It was really fun, for example, to see Deb Pilger and James Schaefer really dive in. I think a whole area kind of dedicated to things they're passionate about is pretty exciting. When we were working on the youth part, Mary Lynn Pulsher went to HR, grabbed data. Jolene got inspired. She made some graphics that made it really fun for us to be able to see. Julie's been diving into the revenue stuff. So I want you to know that there's really some really great kind of stories behind the scenes. And then most recently, Adam, because he's a great author, took some time to really take the words to a whole nother level. So I could go on thank yous, but I'm really appreciative of how everybody has stepped up, and they're inspired by where you're taking us. So here we go. We started on this on February 10th with a visioning session. We've had meetings dedicated to this on the 10th, March 24th, April 22nd, May 13th. Tonight is our study item. If you like it, if we're almost there with maybe a few tweaks, I'm hoping to bring something for you to approve at Admin Finance on the 17th. And if we're still liking it, full board on July 1st. That would be great. That would position staff to start doing the budget action development they need to do that would come with your recommended budget in August. We started with hopes, hurdles, and pathways. And on February 10th, we did a bunch of Post-its on the wall. You ended up at that point with 13 hopes, and this is really where we spent a lot of time. When we got to the March 24th meeting, we realized we were missing a critical hope, which became important to us long-term, which was climate. At that March 24th meeting, you identified 4 top hopes: climate, youth, natural areas, and revenue. And you filled out a worksheet that basically helped us understand what you thought success would look like on those top 4 hopes. When we got to the April 22nd meeting, based on what you had shared in those worksheets, we had narrowed it down to focus areas for climate, natural areas, youth, and revenue. And then you had an opportunity to tell us which of those focus areas were going to be most important. So for climate, we took a couple of them. The ones with stars are really where we focused our energy on as a staff group, trying to figure out what those performance goals might look like for it. Number 1 was climate becoming part of prioritization and decision making. And then there was a second component there where there was really reducing the community's carbon footprint, which took a few additional components to it. And then we layered in this land management component, which has been pretty exciting. And we used that to start developing our performance goals for the climate theme. For natural areas, you had real strong preferences there. You had improving the quality of natural areas, and you had sustainable staffing and resources as your top priorities. When we moved on to the youth theme, what we heard a lot from you were kind of concepts around enrichment and engaging youth, primarily in pathways towards employment. We also, in this one, you had a real robust discussion at that particular meeting around community safety. So we ended up identifying that. We added that to the list at the time as a focus area and identified that through your prioritization as one we would focus on in performance goal development. When we got to revenue, I think we've said this before, you wanted us to diversify and you wanted everybody to feel great about it. So we really started thinking about this both as a diversification performance goal and a communication performance goal. When we came back on the 13th, we did some live tallying, and for revenue, we ended up, well, maybe I should step back. For each of those focus areas, we brought you a couple of different options for draft performance goals. And so our goal at this particular meeting was to understand which ones resonated the most with you. So Joe Ayers was there. If you remember, he was doing the live tallying. And when we looked at the tallies that came up, for example, on the revenue, the first one was really to develop and maintain a report on organization-wide revenue development, and to specify a certain amount where we would increase our total revenue. And then we also had this telling our story. So we wanted to be able to better tell our story through marketing and communications. When we focused on the youth theme, there were some really tight vote scores on this one. And so when we went back as a staff team, we were really looking at the first focus area around the pathway component and how might we think about programming as well as employment components there. So we'll get to that in just a minute in terms of where we landed. And then both of the partnership ones also seemed very strong, but neither one of them really was the true leader of that. But we had really nice, strong direction on the enhancing safety through staff collaboration. So there's been actually quite a bit of excitement internally on that one as well. When we got to climate, we saw a lot of support around the policy, planning, and capital decisions. So looking at how we integrate climate into those types of decisions. We saw support on that climate forward land management report or land management option. So not only was it something we added in at a meeting, it also then became really strong in this particular exercise. And then we also saw some strength around positioning parks as community climate solution through partnerships. Finally, for the natural areas, we had really strong direction here. What we understood walking away from this is you really liked kind of these three-part, the really tactical of restoring a certain number of the existing natural areas per their management briefs, developing management briefs for the remaining 95 acres, and then starting to look at that next grouping of acreage that needed to be prioritized. We also saw very clearly that you wanted us to, staff are currently working on a model based on their 2026 budget action. You wanted us to work towards implementing that and then see how we could scale it up. You wanted us to be mindful of equipment, materials, office space, all the things that would go along with that, and then the anticipated need for perhaps some additional support around wildlife management and perhaps even environmental stewardship in that staffing model. So here's where we landed. I've highlighted a few things in red because I feel like they are some of the biggest changes that staff recommended as they refined these. So for climate, when we look more deeply at the integrate climate, well, maybe let me start from the top. The strategic direction. You're going to notice everything ends in an ing. Adam has taken really great care to make sure that the strategic direction actually fully relates to the performance goals and pulls off of the things that you most strongly chose within the last session. So leading through climate change. For the one that was focused on integrating climate into planning, policy, and capital decisions, we realized we needed to be more specific that it was the capital program and not capital projects, and that we also needed to add rehabilitation into it. So that's where you see measured, to be measured in capital and rehabilitation program planning. When we got to the one, create a climate forward approach to land management, in order for folks not to think this was about land conversion and actually about how we might specifically manage each different type of vegetated land cover, we thought we should specifically say that in the performance goal. So that's where that language, vegetated land cover types, comes in. On that last one, positions parks as community climate solutions through partnerships. We previously had that as recreation access, but when we really thought about it, it's actually program access. So when you see those words highlighted, program access, it was just mainly trying to encompass kind of the full body of programming we do versus just, say, recreational access. The next one is the youth one. So the strategic direction language is creating pathways for youth employment, skills, and safety. Quite a bit of work done in this particular area. So when we looked at, there were kind of 2 around pathways and 2 around partnerships. What you will see is we kind of pushed them together a little bit. So you have the first one is around youth employment and workforce programs. So this is really a lot of the things that you see out of our like Teen Works and our Yeti type programming. And then the second one is really more about those program pathways. So, but we layered partnerships into both of them. So you don't have a separate partnership goal that sits out there. We've put partnership into both concepts of both kind of that employment strategy as well as the specific program strategy. When we did this, first want to note that when we think of youth employment, we're thinking ages 14 to 24. So that gets kind of that full range. And when we did the numbers, and this is where, when I said Mary Lynn talked to HR and then brought the numbers forward, and then Jolene showed the graphs, we were like, wow, 40% of our workforce. So when you think about the people that we hire throughout the year, and it's not full-time, you know, all the time, folks, but of the hires, 40% of them are currently youth. And we are really holding on to that word sustain because we know that in the next couple of years, some of the funding that we have for our summer program is likely going to go down, and we're going to have to work to rebuild that. So we're not suggesting a growth number there, and that seemed to be understood when we reviewed that concept at our previous meeting. But we want to sustain that 40%, and we want to do it in partnership both internally and externally. So we're seeing a lot of really quite a bit of strength in some of the pathways that we have with youth, where you're seeing in some of the videos that came out on Teen Works, where now we're getting trades apprenticeships and painter apprenticeships type work. Then shifting more to the programmatic one. So again, in partnership with community, organizations, schools, and workforce agencies, we want to increase youth engagement and enrichment, leadership, and workforce development opportunities to serve 300 youth per year. When Nicole gave me that number of 300, I was like, woohoo! That feels like a big number and a fantastic number. So we're pretty excited about that, and she's optimistic that she might even have some grant funding lined up to help with that. So again, this is looking at creating pathways from elementary and middle school all the way to employment opportunities, and not necessarily jobs within the organization, but preparing youth for jobs or helping them understand what jobs are available. Then there was a slight edit to the enhanced safety through staff collaboration. We thought we should first assess where the gaps are for current staffing and then increase visibility in those areas. So we added a little bit of a gap study into that, and then would be increasing visibility in the areas where we think it would be most helpful. The natural areas, these I would say are a little bit smaller tweaks, just trying to make things a little bit more clear for folks who might be reviewing these and working on these over time. So the first is that we wanted to add the word protection. Oh wait, I need to go up to the strategic direction. Enhancing stewardship of natural areas is our new strategic direction proposal there. In the actual title, we wanted to add the word protection in it, and we also wanted to add the language cultivating support across the organization for protecting natural areas. That gets important. We have a lot of people doing a lot of different things in the system, and we're looking for ways increasingly that they all know what each other is doing so that we don't accidentally put things in the spaces where other people are already doing work. So that is really what that speaks to, is building that muscle more firmly within the organization. And we had previously been using 50 acres And what we would rather go to is the remaining acres of natural area. And that is because as we look through the documents, there's a few different ways that those acres have been represented. So saying remaining acres was going to be more appropriate for that, for defining that. When we got to the fund new staffing and resources for managed areas, we wanted to specify the model being developed so that commissioners wouldn't anticipate that there was already a model, but the model being developed in 2026 to manage that existing 400 acres. And then in talking a little bit more closely with Director Pilger and James Schaefer, there are also some additional resource management type positions that might be needed in this. And so they, if possible, if the board supported, wanted to be able to say, and resource management disciplines that might be in addition to the wildlife or the volunteer stewardship. So just a little addition there. And finally, sharing our impact, funding our future is the language there. Looked at what the percentages might be. A couple of things. So wanted to make sure it was non-property tax. I probably should have highlighted the non-property tax as well, because we really understood that this particular revenue strategy is not about increasing existing resources as much as it is trying to find new resources and to reduce the dependency on our property tax, but wanted to look at then a 20% increase for the general fund and an 8% increase for the enterprise fund. And then Jolene helped. She zhuzhed up a little bit of the telling its story. So we still have implement and enhance communications and outreach strategy that amplifies MPRB's position as a leading agency that provides invaluable service and positively impacts residents in Minneapolis and beyond. You also have in your packets what the priority comp plan strategy recommendations are. The ones here that are in red are ones that, based on the dots that folks had provided, that we added in. So for revenue, we added in 711 and 9.8, and for youth, we added in 8.4. Natural areas, we added in 6.6, and there weren't any changes in climate. The ones that were removed was for youth, 214 was removed, for natural areas, 6.1, and for revenue, that were 2 that were removed because we added 2, it's 4.4 and 9.9. So, with that, we are anxious to see where you're at and what you're thinking. And I might go back to my desk so I can actually run the clock at the same time, so.
Okay. All right, commissioners. So yeah, thoughts and feelings on this, perhaps some, if you're thinking of proposed slight edits or changes, we can begin to discuss them now. Any discussion? Vice President Deshpande.
Thank you. For the natural areas items, I had a few questions. In number 1, it says increase natural areas quality through focused management and protection and an eye to future expansion. I think I'm getting confused between all the numbers involved. So you say there's a restoration goal for a total of 12 to 13 existing management briefs, and then developing additional briefs for 95 acres. And then in the second strategic goal, you mentioned 400 acres. And so I guess I'm trying to understand the relationship between the 12 to 13 management briefs, 95 remaining acres, and 400 existing acres.
President Olson and Vice President Deshpande. Good question. So what the group is currently working toward is management briefs for a total of 400 acres. They have 95 acres that they still have to write management briefs for of that initial 400. They currently have 19 management briefs done, and in the last 4 years, the commitment was getting 6 of those kind of up and going. And so what they're asking is that the board would support them in getting kind of another 6 to 7. And so basically it's about another third of what is already written. So 400 total, 95 we still need briefs to be written. And then of the 19 briefs that we have, they want to get another third of them really rolling and working well. The natural areas first phase documents actually have like another 500 acres that are identified and still need to be prioritized. But different parts of that document refer to that additional 500 a little bit differently. And so staff are asking that we use the number, or use the word remaining acres versus specifying a specific number, because we can't fully align it with how that document is lined up. But that would be in addition to, so there is an anticipated existing 400 that they're working on, plus an additional maybe up to like 500 more. And so a total of 900 or so. That would be part of what would be the total focus of this. That 400 acres that's in the second one is really referencing the part that they're working on right now.
Okay, I think I'll need an email just to break all that down and refresh myself on it. It's easy to get lost. In general, that sounds okay, though. The second thing was that in the first goal, it says include only items in natural areas phase 1. Why only phase 1?
President Olson and Vice President Deshpande, I might actually direct that question to Deb Pilger and James Schaefer through an email and get back to you on that. Right now, what they would be proposing is just getting through, by the end of this 4 years, the full prioritization of everything. Some of it would be implemented and some of it would be in prioritization. Actually, maybe Adam knows a little bit more about this, but I'm guessing that they're just not to the point where they would envision being able to do that. But let's see what Adam knows.
Vice Chair Deshpande and President Olson, I think an email follow-up from Natural Resources would be helpful. But I think what I can share is that what we're talking about is that there's different categories of natural areas under our current classification. There's a set of natural areas that we know are natural areas, but we're not really doing anything with them. And they exist in that phase 1 plan only. In the phase 2 plan, now we get into all the management briefs. So there are management briefs for the 95 acres, and then the additional 12 to 13 is kind of in those categories where they're already being managed under a management brief. The ones in the phase 1 only don't have management briefs. They don't have anything. So the proposal is to take some portion of that phase 1 only group and elevate them into having more robust management briefs and stewardship.
Okay, that sounds good. And that actually ties to my last question, which is that, these natural areas plans were written in some cases almost a decade ago. I think the first one was from 2017, if I'm not mistaken. So a lot of things have changed since then, and a lot of the stewards and volunteers of the area weren't involved in the initial phase. It was very consultant driven. So I think one thing that's important is we should consider what's changed in the last decade, particularly around the Worth peatlands, wetlands work, which we are not moving forward with that grant that we considered before, but still is on the table as an option, especially with the Bureau of Water and Soil Resources having dollars available for a hydrology study. So I guess I'm saying a couple things. One is let's involve the volunteers and stewards more to be expansive enough to understand that these natural areas plans probably have changed and evolved in ways that we didn't anticipate originally. And 3, put some focus on where there's other state resources available for us to advance some initiatives in those natural areas resources spots. So I can email and write all that out again, but there might be some tweaks to some of this language, I think, is what I'm suggesting.
Great, thank you.
Okay. I think it was another close one between Commissioners Benny and Frederick.
I don't know.
Commissioner Frederick, too quick on the draw.
Yeah, I'll get better at it. Yes, thank you for drafting this, presenting it to us tonight. My primary question is concerning strategic direction B, with number 1 being my area of focus. So I know you mentioned it, Secretary Ringgold, but is this 40% of total MPRB workforce across the entire board, all staff, provisional, seasonal, 40%, no matter what way you look at it, is youth ages 18 to 24. Sorry, 14 to 24.
President Olson and Commissioner Frederick, yes, it's across all staff.
Thank you. So my goal within this metric, I would like to see us strive towards a growth instead of just a maintenance in terms of youth employment. I think what we see as a park board is a very robust, and I believe you can quote me on this, if not quote Superintendent Al Bangora, that we are the largest employer of youth in the state of Minnesota. And I think that is something that we should strive to grow. And by 2030, looking at ways that we can continue to create pathways for youth beyond just a 40% metric. So I guess I don't have any further questions, just that I do have a concern with a maintenance goal versus a growth goal in terms of youth employment. I think it's a huge asset for our system to be able to utilize skills that youth are hoping to grow, especially for our youth on the north side. I think we can really focus on prioritizing pathways to employment. So I think I will have some proposed amendments to this specifically, and I welcome other commissioners' ideas and discussions around what that could look like. As this is my first process in strategic development, I'm not sure what metrics would be the best suited for a growth goal like this, but I do think that for me, potentially for other commissioners, this is an area where I think we can really focus on growth rather than maintenance.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, you know, and that's why I'm happy we're doing this as a study item. Oh, Secretary Ringgold.
President Olson and Commissioner Frederick, I think to help you prepare for that, what I will ask staff to do is, so recognizing right now that our summer Teen Works program is being funded by a funding source that we anticipate is going to significantly reduce or be reduced, and that we'll have to rebuild that. What I think would be helpful for probably commissioners to understand is what we think that reduction is going to actually result in terms of number of positions, or in some way be able to describe that to you, so that, because what we are envisioning this board is going to have to do is you're going to experience a dip because the funding is being diminished, and then you're going to have a lot of work just to bring us back up. So I want to make sure you have a clear vision of how much of a dip that is, so that if you want to go higher than 40%, you're understanding how much work that will be and what the potential funding might be required.
And to be clear, that's the funding, that's $750,000 that was in one-time state funding, I believe, for Teen Works. It was
President Olson, I might rely on Council Rice. I thought it was more like 1.2.
Let's see, we're in the, Mr. President, to the question raised by Commissioner Frederick, yes, we're in this anomalous situation where in 2023, the legislature advanced funded for a 4-year period through June 30th of 2027. And it was kind of a hunk of money that could be drawn upon by the board. And I'm anticipating that when we go into the legislative session next year, a lot of the budgeting practices that were done during that post-COVID period where there was a substantial budget reserve is going to be a lot of intense competition to reestablish a base level of funding. And I think it's possible to do it, but it's going to take a very clear direction on this board legislatively to say what your priority is. And we're going to have to rebuild those numbers in base budgets at the same time when there's a lot of other priorities kicking around in that budget. So we've been successful. There was a lot of money. I remember talking to Senator Majority Leader Dietzick about this as a strategy and extending it, and that was kind of the best option at the time. If you could go back in history and say, is it worth taking a big number, which I think was in the magnitude of $375 a year, which $750 might even be $1.5 million over a biennium, or over the 4-year period that we had. We just have an exposure there, and that program may or may not survive the next session of the legislature.
So, I mean, obviously, we'll fight to keep that. I think you're right in your analysis of the difficulty of continuing to project that out. I'm wondering, Secretary Ringgold, so to say we are incredibly successful and, you know, our team works, youth funding, where we get all we want, it's expanded for the next, 5 years or 6 years or something like that. Would we be able to come back to this if there's some sort of windfall, or would we just kind of check that off and say that was a success?
President Olson, so we have a really small pattern of this right now. But what happened for us in the last round is we actually met one of the goals within the first 2 years. And when we did that, we came back to the board and said, well, do you want to extend the goal, or do you want to, say we are successful at this and move on to the other goals? And at the time, the board was like, no, let's focus on the other goals. So if we meet this goal, I think what we would, and we say we still have a couple of years left in the entire frame of it, of the 4 years, I think we'd come back and ask you, okay, do you want to change it now? Or do you want to up it? What do you want that to look like?
Okay. Commissioner Benny.
Thank you. I really like the way that these have come together, and I like the way that I see them interrelating to each other. There's a little Venn kind of circle touching, climate to natural areas, to telling the story, and so on. As for the, Commissioner Frederick's comments, I respect that. I do think as a sustained goal, it's still a pretty darn good goal. Being, number one, we don't need to be number oneer, So I think I don't want to push harder than the organization needs also, because it is about what the youth need. I mean, 2 of my 3 kids have worked at the parks, and it was a big deal for them to have those opportunities. But also the park also needs to be able to provide services, and it needs to also drive the demand for the workforce. So just a couple things. Under the enhanced safety through staff collaboration and so on, that piece there, that's number 3 on youth and safety and so on. There's a piece here about, it's calling out especially regional parks, and I understand that. It has to do with staffing. That's really their eyes on the ground and all of that. But I would like to see if we could balance it a little bit more and be really candid about the neighborhood parks, the ones that specifically need not necessarily staffing as much as different strategies. And I don't know what that is, but I do believe there's a need there. And it's not necessarily as prevalent in my district, but I know I've heard this from community. So if we just write the words, especially regional parks, I don't want to lose sight of those specific neighborhood parks. And I think we can name not the parks necessarily, but the issues and see what can be done there. because that would be a big deal for community, I think. And then, I mean, sharing our impact, funding our future. I really like that title. I really like it. And maybe this is too much. Maybe it's too much, but on elevating the approach to telling its story, if at all possible, and I don't know if there's money to do it, is there an economic evaluation that says, you know, again, the dollar invested, you know, and I don't know, maybe that will come naturally from the work, maybe it's already behind the scenes, the idea to do this, but for every dollar that we take in the organization, we know we're adding this back to the economy times whatever. If at all possible, and I was at the Water Resources Conference last fall, and I talked to a guy that did an evaluation. He was a consultant, the value of even just the lakes in the city of Madison, Wisconsin. So there are definitely models out there to look at the value add. That's it for me. Thanks.
Commissioner Engelhardt.
Yeah, thank you, staff, and also, you know, commissioners. We put a lot of time meeting on all of this, and there's a lot to work through and be wide-eyed about decisions we're making, and they're big decisions. But I'll be focused on strategic direction C number 2. The way I'm reading it is, and I hope I'm wrong, is that we'd be there's a big push and a very clear direction from constituents and community groups, and obviously a clear priority for natural areas on this Board of Commissioners, and additional staff being needed, full-time staff. Community has come forward with 1% FTE, full-time equivalent, for those that don't know. So 1.0 is a full-time 40-hour-a-week job. That, and then, you know, in our conversations and our strategic budget planning vision sessions, we had identified that staff think that it needs to be even more. And my concern with it, as written in this paragraph, is that it's indicating to me that we won't have that staffing until 2030, when we feel like I think we're looking to pass it in, you know, December, that we'd be having additional staff on natural areas, but, you know, employed, you know, maybe well into their positions by this time next year. So that kind of jumps out at me, and wondering what that's about.
Secretary Ringgold. Is that open-ended?
President Olson and Commissioner Engelhardt, I hear what you're saying, right? Like, the intent for the board is for this to be in place as early as next year, and I think you can still do that. But this gives you the opportunity, if you need to find resources in additional areas, or you're not able to make it happen, say in this budget cycle, it gives you a little bit more time to do it. So I might need to think a little bit if there's a way to reflect both things. But at this moment, you know, I think giving yourself the time might be wise as you look at the budget scenarios coming into the next year.
Commissioner Forney.
Thank you. First of all, ING, I love it. Thank you. Good at it. And I appreciate the conversation. I think, you know, I wrote down, what is the baseline? What do we need to establish to get the baseline? And it came down to really understanding the context. I think it's really important what Council Rice, lobbyist, right, whatever, shared, that we'd be looking at some deficits here, and therefore to find the balance. I think that was very important for us to know. And the other context part is the fact that we did get our youth funding and how much we have grown to understand, you know, how much impact we've had so far. The 40%, I think, is a realistic amount to keep as it is, knowing our deficits coming forward. Anyway, so added as far as what is that, direction A, create a climate forward approach to land management. Water? Can we put water in there too? I just feel like that's something that is missing. And as far as, where am I? And yeah, so I put in here something about a graph, meaning, you know, what has our youth employment been through time? I think that's something that is helpful for us to all understand. You know, what was it before? What have we already grown thanks to the youth funding that we've had? What's the next thing? As far as, what is that? B3, enhance safety through the staff collaboration. I'm assuming, but I don't want to assume, that staffing also means policing. And so I just want to make sure, and I agree wholeheartedly as far as, I think regional parks is important to state, but I did a ride-along on Friday, and I can tell you, as far as what is experience, it's our neighborhood parks that are probably a larger issue than regional. Was another one. Oh, and as far as the natural areas, I loved particularly Director Arvidsson speaking to it. I'm a visual person, and if maybe somehow a graphic of the remaining 95 acres, the existing 400, I think might be helpful for us to all really understand. I appreciate the naturalist groups advocating for the 1%, but I think helping with a visual of what these areas are would be very helpful. And then I'm just gonna put a caution. I appreciate that we put 8% for the enterprise fund. I have heard, though, some caution from people saying, let's not turn to too much capitalization of our park system. And I love also the last one as far as approach, telling the story that we are the economic driver, and let's enhance on that. Let's fuel that conversation.
Thank you, Commissioner Forney. Commissioner Benny.
Just briefly, President Olson, to address Commissioner Forney's comment about water, we did, when we were sitting over there, that did come up, and I think it was decided at that time to keep water as a separate thing because of the new, stormwater team and program, and it's focusing more on water quality, which certainly touches on climate, but this would be its own separate, I want to use a pun, we won't water this one down. Okay, yeah, thanks.
Commissioner Carvajal-Moran.
Thank you, President Olson. So yeah, more than anything, I just want to give a huge thanks to the whole team, the staff. I know that this has taken a couple COW meetings. I do want to add just some thoughts on strategic direction B for our youth, specifically when it comes to safety through staff collaboration. And so this makes me excited about just visibility and staff at our parks. I know that I did have a check-in and just processing together with Chief Ojado. And so I know that, well, from how I'm reading this, the focus is on staffing and then implementing strategies to increase visibility. I was wondering if there's anything around trainings. So in that conversation that we had, we talked about just, for example, in regional parks, just, some of the folks that are in our parks have serious mental health, serious mental health concerns. And so, like, I don't know, just amplifying training opportunities with that one. I think having visibility is super important, and but I think that if it could also, there could be some language about training, just staff with that too would be great. So just with that.
Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you, President Olson. I want to echo everyone who has thanked staff for all of the hard work they put into this. I think we're really, really fortunate to have this have been the result of our feedback and things like that. And I think I'm very very inclined to support it. I think there are a few minor changes that can be made here and there as we discuss some things. And I'm certainly happy to follow up with Secretary Ringgold via email with a couple points that I have some curiosity about and ways that we might be able to sort of tighten up some of the wording or specificity. But really, I just want to say thank you to everyone for this process. It's been a huge undertaking, especially as a newer commissioner, and it's been really exciting and energizing to work with all of you and work on getting these priorities through.
Great. Yeah, I'd like to echo, I really think that this is a good marrying of what this board brings in its uniqueness to the park board while continuing, a really strong legacy. And so I feel pretty confident, that the timeline that you put up there, Secretary Ringgold, I think, we might be seeing a couple proposed tweaks or amendments at our next admin and finance meeting. We can discuss those and look at those. Folks who are kind of looking in at things, definitely encourage you to speak early and often with staff to make sure that that is kind of relevant or workable. And then, hopefully we can get these implemented because we're starting our conversations with, with BET, with the mayor, with folks like that. And so, having these strategic directions to work off of and to, have that kind of cohesion is important in those conversations. And so I do think it's important that we get that. I do think it's important we stick to that schedule. But yeah, just thank you everyone for the process. Thank you all the new commissioners for coming in with diligence and an understanding of the importance of these strategic directions. And I think we're going to have a good 4 years here. So any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we are now on to petitions and communications. Let's start with Commissioner Engelhardt.
Yeah, as we just talked about strategic priorities, I want to name that we didn't name labor because we felt like we've done quite a bit on labor. We established the new committee, the Committee of Employee Relations, which I'm the chair, and there's a lot of work that goes into that. So just naming that at the outset. And, I'm attending labor management committee meetings and working through lots of different issues, and I want to hear from anyone who's employed about, what we're doing well and what we could be doing differently. On Monday, President Olson and I and Superintendent Bangora and other excellent staff were at a art opening, and it's happy. The artist Sape is currently painting, I'm sure, at Boom Island. So encourage people to get out to that. And 4 o'clock on Friday and Saturday is a big group photo of locking arms. It's beyond walls. It's coming together in community, and that's what we need. So, and we're the first city in the United States to get such an art installation. And our mayor commented on the importance of an independent park board. And I'm meeting with Chief Ojado as the role of chair of Committee of Employee Relations tomorrow to look into all the practices we have in terms of what our police are doing and our park police, and I want to lift up the value of an independent park police as well through that process, and also being very clear about something I did campaign and run on, which is a highly accountable park police, and looking towards zero tolerance for excessive force and explicit bias. And I just see tremendous value in us having a separation from the Minneapolis Police Department with our park police and of course our overall park board. So I wanted to name that. And then lastly, and certainly not least, last week we had to reschedule our Labor Management Committee meeting because one of the staff and business agents and leaders with AFSCME that represents our staff was murdered, Khalid Abdi. So with the rest of my time, I guess I'll just do a moment of silence for Khalid.
I wasn't sure who was leading the end of it. I didn't know about that. That's terrible. Okay, Commissioner Frederick.
Yeah, no, thank you, Dan, for bringing that up. Khalid was an amazing organizer, an incredible community member, and beloved person. So he will be missed greatly, dearly by everybody who knew him, anybody who had the pleasure of working alongside him in the organizing space. Definitely a huge loss for the community. I just want to uplift the work that the staff has been doing, supporting commissioner ideas and putting them forward in these strategic directions, and appreciate the openness to feedback and collaboration. That's really incredible. I think that's a great part about what makes this board's autonomy so important, is the ability to show effective collaboration and governance. So I really appreciate the board's ability to have these open discussions around what our priorities look like in the community, and I look forward to continuing to engage those. I wanted to say happy Pride to everybody. Pride Month officially kicked off 2 days ago. Obviously, Loring Park Pride is a huge event for our community. I look forward to being there, participating, being in community. I also look forward to walking in the Pride Parade. As a member of the LGBTQ community, I think it's really important to have representation and to show community how active, the LGBTQ community is in our Minneapolis community. So look forward to seeing people out there to celebrate. Have a happy, healthy, and safe Pride Month.
Okay, Commissioner Ricker.
Yeah, attended a couple events put on. One was put on by the rec department, Nicole Hernandez. Summer Jam at North Commons, great event, successful. A lot of people that was there, kids. The park was filled, safe. Just wish the rec department continues to do positive things like that in the community. Just want to give you, you guys a hand for doing what you did. Yesterday, a ribbon cutting ceremony at Orvin Ole Olson Park that overlooks Mississippi River, right up the street here, about a block north of headquarters. Great event. If you guys can get up there and check it out. Beautiful area. So Northside is having a lot of things going on in District 2.
Vice President Deshpande.
Thank you. So yesterday I went to the Soapbox Derby in St. Paul, and it was a competition, and we won. Yeah, it was great. It was great seeing Commissioner Carvajal-Moran there too. Mayor Herr challenged me to a race. Ultimately, it didn't happen, but there's still time for that in the future. It was also great seeing a lot of D3 and District 3 staffers there who came out to help, and so I was really proud and just happy to see that. A week ago, President Olson and Superintendent Bangor and I did the ribbon cutting for Clinton Field Futsal Court, which was also super fun. It's in my neighborhood. And it was really a product of a lot of advocacy from the Futsal Society. And so I'm really grateful to them because it's an amazing game and it's an amazing group that's made a lot of things happen. And then lastly, continuing on the thread of history, I saw the play Courting Harry at the History Theater in downtown St. Paul. And it's still playing for another few days. It's really good. It's about two Supreme Court justices, Harry Blackmun and Warren Burger, who were best friends growing up in St. Paul. And they were both appointed to the Supreme Court by Richard Nixon. And both of them actually heard the 4F case that I referred to before, and they both decided in our favor. And it's just an amazing play, and it's an amazing story, and I recommend seeing it if you can. Thanks.
Interesting. I saw a quick light, Superintendent Bangora. Another victory lap, perhaps.
Yeah. No, thank you very much, President Olson. I just wanted to throw in, thank you for an opportunity as mentioned. I believe tomorrow, just to make sure, I'm looking at my calendar here because we have a lot of grand openings, right? Audubon Park. Yeah, tomorrow. So just wanted to throw it out there. Very exciting. And we're having a lot of ribbon cuttings, and it's really amazing to see the work that has been built to this point from MPP 20 and the neighborhood revitalization rehab, that all the work we're doing, we're starting to see that every single year. So I wanted just to encourage opportunity to come to any one of those. They really make you recognize what we do as a park system, that we invest in our parks, and we want the best for our community. So thank you for giving me the time to mention that.
Commissioner Engelhardt, it looks like you're pro. We'll give
Yes, tomorrow from 4 to 6, and there will be public comments at 5 p.m. at Audubon, and it's been a great community's really taken to that. So that's come out and celebrate the good stuff, and then the following Thursday, Botno. So 2 Thursdays in a row in District 1 parks.
Okay, Commissioner Carvalho Moran.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry, you all. I don't know, I'm just very, very honored to be serving. I think as a commissioner, we are also faced with just many things that happen in the district. At least these 2 weeks have been really, really hard for District 5, and so I just want to acknowledge that. Thank you, Commissioner Engelhardt, for acknowledging our ASME sibling, Khalid Abdi, in St. Paul. We lost a community member to Gabriel Octaviano Sola. They were a part of the LGBTQIA plus community. And this past Tuesday, and for the community out there that is watching, so just a trigger warning, at the Falls, we had an individual commit self-harm, and so with that, I just want to also have a moment of silence for these lives, you know. I think that there's a lot happening in our world right now, just violence everywhere. And so I just want to acknowledge that political, social, economical, and political environment that we're living in. At least last week, for the 6th annual George Floyd Memorial Site, I saw a lot of community members using our park space as spaces of processing, grief processing. And so, like, again, just I also want to amplify the joy that there is. I want to amplify the lives that there is. And so, like, we're grateful, and I'm grateful to have a park system that do offer these spaces of being able to be close to the water, nature, you know, just to allow us to process. And so just for anyone out there, you know, just like, I hope that you know that there's community that loves you, that you're valued. There are resources out there, and so to District 5, I'm standing with you. It's been 2 really hard weeks, and so I just want to acknowledge that. Again, also want to amplify the joy that there is and just the amazing work that our staff, our park systems offer. And so, like, again, I just want to acknowledge and also amplify the joy that there is. So thank you.
Thanks for that. Commissioner Forney.
Thank you. Yes, last Friday I had the privilege of having a ride along with our park police. For any of you who have not, you know, been on it, I really encourage you to go on it. I've been on others, and it's always very enlightening, very eye-opening. And one of the things that's so helpful is seeing issues on the ground, issues that are apparent. And some of the things I noticed is that we need to do more planned efficiencies. A great deal of time was spent in just closing the parking lots of the south end of Bedeh-McCoska. So I really hope that we can do more, like say efficiencies is the best way I can put it. And we had only 5 squad cars out, and so we do definitely need more park police and park patrol. I'm just so impressed with the tenor of our force. Sergeant Cannon just was eloquent in dealing with a young man who really wanted to fish off of the sailing dock. Her calm and respectful way that she dealt with that was really impressive. Then the next thing I was going to comment about is Commissioner Rucker comment is the Ole Olson Trail opening. This is a huge, huge, huge thing, and I say that on a whole bunch of different levels, but I do a big, huge shout out to Representative Fooley for advocating for that, and he's continuing to advocate, of course, for the bridge crossing. What was fun is that, of course, he brought his sons as well to enjoy that. And the reason why I say how important the relationship, in particular with him and, of course, Senator Champion, is I was the chair of the Citizen Advisory Committee of the Above the Falls, what we affectionately refer to as Phase 1, because we went 3/4 of the way through the citizen engagement process, only to find out that Congressman Sabo's staff had failed to put the funding for what we were envisioning in the budget anyway. And so that's why we only had an asphalt trail, and that's it that happened. So these relationships are important. And excuse me if I forgot to say, that was in 2006. That was 20 years ago. So government is slow, but we do things, and the resolve of the issue to go underneath the railway bridge. Thank you. How creative that design was, I really do. And then I also want to comment that we have a new restaurant at the Trailhead called the Trailhead Cafe, powered, I love that, powered by Aki's Bread House. And I just also wanted to mention that as far as that photo op at Boom Island for the Beyond Walls, there's also another photo op at 4 o'clock on Saturday. So there's 4 on Friday and 4 on Saturday. So anyway, thank you.
Commissioner Garcia?
Thank you, President Olson. I really just wanted to echo some of Commissioner Carvajal-Moran's sentiments. It feels like the past 2 weeks we've really been able to experience some of the absolute highs of being a part of this board, hearing about our legislative wins and our funding wins, and knowing what that means for North Commons Park and things like that, and then also feeling some really deep lows in terms of knowing the amount of police actions that have had to occur in our parks, and knowing the work that our Parks Police have had to put in some really difficult situations. But I guess the common thread that sort of ties that all together for me is just knowing that we have an amazing staff, we have an amazing group of people who are committed to our parks and to MPRB, and making sure that everything that we're doing is as positive and impactful and doing the most good for our community as possible.
Thank you. Commissioner Benny?
I'll pass.
Okay, yeah, 2 things, just echoing Superintendent Bangora's, I think we're on like 5 in the last couple of weeks of openings and ribbon cuttings, and it's just really awesome to see the impact we're having on the community. It's one of the privileges of being president. We have a couple things, shout outs. The pencil sharpening, I think, is this Saturday or whatever in Commissioner Garcia's district. It's park adjacent. Certainly folks are going to be, staying in our parkways there. And so it's fun to point that out. And then also really encourage commissioners on Sunday, if you have your Sunday open, to go to Open Streets Lindale. It's just one of the most amazing things to see how much we can transform a space by pedestrianizing it. And so I'd really encourage folks to go there, experience that, and see the human connection that can be created with events like that. So with that, I will then adjourn the the regular meeting of the Park Board.
I'd like to convene the Administration and Finance Committee here at 7:54. Secretary Ringo, will you please call the roll?
Vice President Deshpande.
Here.
Commissioner Engelhardt,
Here.
Commissioner Rucker,
Here.
Co-Chair Carbajal Moran,
Here.
Co-Chair Forney.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
Also move.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes of May 20th, 2026.
Any questions? Seeing any lights? All those in favor, please signify this by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. Okay, on to our resolutions, our action items. If somebody would please read our first resolution.
I'll move Resolution 2026-104. Resolution approving a construction cooperative agreement between Hennepin County and the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board for the multi-use trail along Golden Valley Road on the north side of North Commons Park.
Thank you. Any comments or questions to that resolution? I'll just comment that my hope is that no matter what is happening with this particular construction, that ever-present is the connections to the potential future Blue Line extension. So just, that's a real significant thing in that line. So anyway, not seeing any other lights. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. On to our next resolution.
I move Resolution 2026-106, a resolution approving the fundraising agreement between the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board and the Friends of the Wildflower Garden for fundraising activities intended to support construction of a council ring gathering area as part of the entrance renovation project at Eloise Butler Wildflower Garden and Bird Sanctuary within Theodore Worth Regional Park.
Thank you. Any questions? Any discussion? Just want to comment that I've been learning too much about the Olsons and the Olsons. We have the SONs and the SENs, and it was fun to see on this contract. We've got a SEN and an SON, so congratulations. Got a little harmony here. Okay, all those in favor? Oh, sorry.
I just had a quick comment, which is that I think this is super cool that we're doing it, and the Friends Group wants to raise a lot of money in a very short amount of time for a great project. So I'm just thankful to them for all the work they've done for the last 70-plus years.
Not seeing any other lights. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. And our next resolution.
I'll move Resolution 2026-111, resolution directing consideration of fee exceptions for traditional cultural practices within the Minneapolis Park and Recreation System during the scheduled 5-year review of the policies and guidelines governing the use of the park system.
Awesome. Questions to this? Not seeing any lights. Oh. Yes, Commissioner Bene.
Yes, Chair Forney, I'm not on the committee, so I was waiting to see if committee members put their lights on. But I could ask questions if this passes and comes to the full board, but I didn't quite understand this. So if people could, I think this came forward by Commissioner Garcia? Carbajal Moran? Okay. So are the cultural practices, is this for, indigenous cultural practices? And if so, is there a role for the, I think we call it the Native American Parks Council, to identify cultural practices? Can somebody just talk me through a little bit about this?
Would you, either one of you or staff person? You tell me.
Chair Forney, Co-Chair Forney, Commissioner Benny, thank you for the question. Yeah, so the intent of this is to remove some barriers for Indigenous people seeking to practice traditional ceremonies within our parklands, to remove some of the cost barriers in terms of waiving fees or making fee exceptions for those sorts of occasions. And I do envision that working with the Native American Parks Council to get feedback, and this is also being done as part of the scheduled 5-year review. So I just wanted to make sure that while they were doing that review, that this guideline was included in the discussion.
Commissioner Benny?
Thank you. I think, yeah, so long as I think I'm, aware of their participation in this, and again, it's something that they're interested in or have recommended to the organization through the Indigenous Action Plan. I'm not totally sure. I know we did some work around, tobacco policy or rules in the parks, and making, taking away any kind of restrictions or permissions for ceremonial tobacco and so on. So anyway, just so long as I'm aware that they're engaged, I think that would be important to me.
Secretary Ringo?
Thank you, Co-Chair Forney. I can confirm tentatively Director Olson and I are already on an agenda for later this month.
Thank you for that clarification. Not seeing any other lights. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. And here at 8 o'clock, I'll adjourn the Administration and Finance Committee.
All right, at 8 p.m., I will convene this meeting of the Planning Committee. Secretary Ringgold, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Carbajal Moran.
Here.
Vice President Deshpande.
Here.
Commissioner Engelhardt.
Here.
Vice Chair Forney.
Here.
Chair Garcia.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, first item, would someone like to move the agenda?
So moved.
All right, any discussion on the agenda for this evening? Seeing none, all those in favor of the agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, we have an agenda. Next, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll motion to approve the Planning Committee minutes of May 20th, 2026.
All right, any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the minutes are adopted. And that brings us to our action items and our resolution.
Okay. I'll move Resolution 2026-114, resolution directing the superintendent to initiate a process to decommission the Minnehaha off-leash recreation area in advance of the scheduled Minnehaha Regional Park long-term plan update.
Sorry.
All right, thank you very much, Commissioner Carbajal Moran. So we have Resolution 2026-114 in front of us. Do we have any discussion? Commissioner Engelhardt.
Yes, this is both a very easy decision, but also I want to acknowledge everyone that has sent an email and spoke publicly tonight, and will be providing input on this. It's not a competition, but I get why people are really passionate about going to the Minnehaha what is currently known as the Minnehaha Dog Park, with their dog. And I could go on about that and personal experiences I've had there, and I'm like, I love dogs. That said, I think one thing that, is certainly in the language of the resolution, and I feel that this Board of Commissioners respects is finding similar spaces. I don't know that replacement is the right way to be thinking about it, and just today I spoke to a friend that I told, hey, we're probably gonna have to close this. We get together with our dogs, that's one aspect of bonding, and he's like, yeah, it's just stages of grieving. And that's, to some extent real for people. I'm voting, in favor of this. It just, got a brief presentation, and I'm wearing a shirt. I campaigned on land back. This feels like the most obvious and clear decision I could potentially make on just about anything. And I just, there's been a lot, like, alternate locations that are wooded and spread out, and I get it. I won't bring my dog, or now dogs, to a smaller dog park for all the reasons that have people have communicated, it's just nice to have something that's so spread out and wooded, and of course, water access is a real challenge, and there are challenges with, you know, pristine waterways. And one thing as we're thinking about this, I think the aspect of fencing, I mean, it's just, I am going to vote in favor of this, and I would, you know, I'll engage with anyone about why and do my best to listen to some extent. That said, if a bunch of fence went up, I mean, that would be disrespectful, period, to the land and the sacred nature of the land, but also it wouldn't be what you're thinking about when you think about that space right now, and I just want people to really sit with that. So even if we didn't have the issue and the respect we have to our Native relatives, fences all over the place would not respect it, and it wouldn't be what you are actually wanting in this space. So that's what I got for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Deshpande.
Thank you, Chair Garcia. I had just a number of nitty-gritty questions for staff about this. So the first is related to what was originally a fencing proposal from 1 or 2 years ago. Where do we think that is going, or is that just a separate discussion that's unrelated at this point?
Chair Garcia and Vice President Deshpande, I don't think it's a wholly unrelated discussion. The resolution directs the superintendent to create a process. And the process, I think, from my perspective, will result in a plan that identifies several steps we need to move through, including closing some of the loops on the actions we've already initiated with the National Park Service.
Okay, thank you. My second question was around the prairie area that's there. There's a remnant prairie that was initially part of the fencing. It was part of the fencing discussion 1 or 2 years ago. Is there plans to bring the natural resources staff into the space, depending on how we move forward?
Chair Garcia and Vice President Deshpande, I think my response will be similar to the last one, that as we move through this process, we'll be creating a plan. There will be some aspects of this, the resolution directs us to do this decommissioning prior to the conclusion of the long-range plan update. So there would be kind of a convergence of actions related to what happens with this land if it's no longer going to be a dog park. And I think the natural resources assessment will become a part of that long-range plan update.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I believe Commissioner Carvajal-Moran.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair Garcia. Yeah, I just want to thank planning staff, Chair Garcia, for putting the work and just being very intentional with this resolution that is being brought forward. I think on the online discourse, I was seeing that there was maybe not a full understanding of what decommissioning is, and so just to get some clarity on what that is decommissioning would basically, so for our canines, the Minnehaha off-leash area is right now an area where our canines can be without a leash and can be in the area. With this decommissioning, it would still, for right now, it would still allow for canines to be in the area, but they would need to be leashed, right? This resolution is also, the plan is to address, and then to my planning staff, if I, if there's anything that, that needs correction by any means, please feel free to jump in. And then with the resolution, it also wants to be intentional of that, just making sure that community is being included on those next steps. And so I do, I think after hearing the previous study item and understanding the sacred area and cultural site of significance, I think that as the board, we are responding, and so decommissioning this resolution is like being active and taking agency. Again, the resolution as Assistant Superintendent Michael Schroeder, the plan is still going to be developed, and so I will be supporting this tonight. And again, to my planning team, if I messed anything up, please. Okay, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Frederick.
Thank you, Chair Garcia, for letting me speak on this item as a unseated member of the board. I want to speak to a couple of things that were, I was hearing and maybe clear up a few of those as to the expediency of this decision. So it was announced at our study item that the findings of the importance of this cultural space was presented to the previous board. So this has been not this board's decision, but the previous board's decision to decide to not take this up as an item of consideration. So it is within, I believe, the right of this board to understand that this has been passed over by a previous board already. So as to the expediency, I understand where community might feel like that has been miscommunicated, and for that I do sincerely apologize, because I believe this is something that could have been prevented had the previous board taken this up as an item. I understand that that probably doesn't qualm some of the sense of loss that this does come with, but I know that for this board to take this up is in response to what the Native community has been asking for a very long time. So I just want to make that very clear that, hopefully once this passes out of committee, I'll be able to support that, and that as we continue moving forward with the decisions about where to consider a new dog park, I just ask, communities' perspective to really consider, were Native and Indigenous people given a robust community involvement process before their land was turned into this dog park. And I really, think as a board that in order to preserve and protect our mission statement, that we have to consider going all the way back to when this land was developed into something other than Indigenous land. And that in order to really create a precedent that encourages cohabitation and stewardship, that this is a move in the right direction. And I'm happy to take any, comment and conversation person to person about it, but I just wanted to speak on that as it's coming before the board to hopefully shed a little bit more light onto a decision that, yes, is big, but is also timely.
Commissioner Eben.
Yes, thank you. I'm not on this committee. I think the main thing here is, I think that, I don't have all the resolution language in front of me, but there are some elements of it that I appreciate around the technical advisory committee, some, public hearings and things like that. I'm wondering though if we shouldn't be more explicit about timelines, because there is only, I think, one thing with a timeline, and it's the December 31st date, which I think is referring to closure, not the plan. So I'm just going to be thinking about that if this passes and it comes to the full board. Also, Vice President Deshpande sort of alluded to it. There are other considerations in that space. There was another group of stakeholders really that have a kind of the environmental perspective of the space as well. And some of the things that we're advancing from the last board were seeking to protect those areas. I just have to comment, I'm not sure when the full archaeological study was done, but it was nothing that was ever presented to the board, but that the park board completed, and this didn't come out of the Indigenous Action Plan as a specific item. So tied to that, I think it's really important to make this statement. One of the comments during open time was about weeks of discussion online, and I just want to say that the people I'm hearing from aren't online. So there are a lot of people that are only aware of this because it's been like on the local news channels the last couple of days. So I think we're gonna have a lot of people playing a lot of catch up. There are a lot of people that are way behind the 8 ball on this. And what we're talking about now is very different from the things that were under consideration by the last board because of what was brought forward by staff at that time. It was fence the land use, basically. The land use is spilling off of park board land onto adjacent properties. That was what the last board was grappling with, and the blowback was massive. So TBD, if it passes, I might take a look at some things we can do just to bring some clarification of the process to the public, because I think they're going to want it.
Thanks. I will add some comment of my own. I worked very diligently with our planning staff, our wonderful planning staff who has all the patience in the world with me, and all of my questions and thoughts and things like that. So I really want to thank them. The December 31st date came about through a lot of discussion, a lot of back and forth with members of our planning staff, in part to make sure that we had a specific date, that this wasn't something that could just keep getting kicked down the road for lack of specificity. And that's something that I take very seriously. When discussing the process for finding alternate locations for off-leash opportunities, we've discussed, how unique this space is and how rare it is to find someplace with all these features. And I know that they're dedicated to working as hard as they can to find something similar, but if not, to find locations that can accommodate as many of those amenities as possible. With never having had a decommissioning like this before, it was very difficult to ask them to put a time for finding a place or places to replace that, because we never know how land acquisition will go. That can be an ongoing process, as we've seen for trying to close the grand rounds, as we've seen for obtaining other land around the Mississippi River and things like that. So as a former dog owner myself, last year I had to have my dog of 14 years put to sleep. And I know that it is not an easy thing to give up amenities like this, especially when they've become such a major part of our life. But this is not a motion that I have initiated lightly. I've had a lot of communications with people from our Dakota community, from other indigenous communities, and heard firsthand their stories and the harms that it brings and the hard feelings that it brings for people when they are trying to engage in a sacred space, and not always treated with the respect that they deserve. And I think that as we look at this historic harm that has been done to our indigenous neighbors and relatives, that it is important that we all sit with some of the discomfort that we're going to feel over the next few months as we work through this process and understand what that is relative to the pain and trauma that we have asked Dakota community members to carry. And with that, seeing no further comment, all those in favor of Resolution 2026-114, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That resolution passes, and we'll move on to the full board. Thank you. And at 8:19, we will adjourn the Planning Committee meeting.
Well done.